My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. This is Ontario PD. Now, this is relevant to the psychological torture that I'm typing about regarding the demon in Unit 55. She's an unemployed domestic terrorist gang stalking on behalf of this corrupt entity, which Paul Leon, a 20-year terrorist in the city of Ontario, is well aware of, while a fake sun, as I documented, is remaining stationary over this building from, as I documented this morning, engineer light shooting through the peephole. That's not sunlight, nor is sunlight going to be at the same exact building while, for example, you're seeing a sun in the state of Nevada, you're seeing a sun over you in the state of Florida. The simultaneity of this conduct, first of all, that's not sunlight that you see in the sky space. This is demonic, and that's the outward demonstration of demon possession by, again, Mike Lorenz. These are demons that are practicing witchcraft as the system of gang stalking, which is a system of organized crimes amongst the state. Crossing path is criminal conduct by the population. The whole city is being documented while the demon in Unit 55, acting in concert with the psychological torture tactic by the demons engaged in surveillance in helicopter while I'm typing out text after capturing substantial screenshots, which you will see uploaded to the Google Drive. And as I do so, the demon engaging in the standard tactic of psychological torture engages in, repeats what it is that it is, what it is monitoring regarding what frightens the target individual, what bothers and annoys, terrorizes the target individual, what harasses the target individual. And so, in other words, walking around in your apartment does not cause the ceilings and the walls to crack. I've captured that on video. This is the environment where you're looking at the fake sun that's set over the building all day, and this is the fake moon. This is also where the demon-possessed agency of the Ontario Police captured in over 6 years of documentation of federal group stalking and monitoring using the incredible method of helicopters, speaking to, again, domestic terrorist leaders like Paul Leon, engaged in domestic terrorism in the city with the people, funding domestic terrorism while unemployed gang stalkers of over 55, by the way, in engineer light, which you will see all over the property. You'll see in substantial screenshots. This is what is inspiring a demon engaging in psychological torture on behalf of the state. That's stalking, engaging in surveillance with the state, employing methods, stalking in the path with light activity, because that's what that is. Doing so where you're seeing the evidence of a fake sun sitting, hovering over the building. And while you see the fake sun that's, again, from the morning, migrating, remaining over the same building for the duration of the day, and this is where the fake sun is also setting. This is the removal of any natural environment being capable of being any other place. Now, you're also seeing the fact that there's a wealth of evidence that shows the exact opposite, and that's how you're aware of what is the malicious engagement of a population that's gang stalking. And that's also exposing mental illness that is not removing criminal responsibility. It's exhibiting high-level malice. These are murderous and sexually violent psychopaths, and that is the outward manifestation of demon possession. This is how you have and why you have police officers that are engaged in gang stalking. They are acting with the criminal purpose to commit malicious murder and kidnapping, which is exactly why the Ontario Police Department is going to be disbanded. This is why Paul Leon is going to be removed from office, and everyone under his corrupt leadership is going to be removed. And by the way, this domestic terrorist is not only a demon-possessed gang stalker pastoring at a fake church that's gang stalking in the city of Ontario, Hope Church. They're all gang stalkers. They're all demons. He is interested in quote-unquote chosen people. This is a reference to children of God. This is also manifest in what his position is with regard to the corrupt government, as he sits as mayor for over 20 years, gang stalking believers like myself, engaging in persecution, and then also gang stalking as a fake pastor in the city of Ontario off of BOWMAN. You'll see the entity engaging in that. Now, this is psychological torture using helicopters. While I'm documenting, capturing images, this is what this demon was doing, engaging in what is repeating the conduct as they listen to very damning and unflattering evidence being captured on video, and this is not helping the population. All gang stalking immigrants are going to be deported. All gang stalkers that are, I'm going to get her license plate because she's going to prison. All of these that live right here, 33 through 64, they're all going to prison. And this demon exhibiting high-level mental instability is going to an asylum for what I am documenting, 3:38 p.m. until 4:08 p.m. Understand what I'm documenting. The ordinary target individual has a constitutional right and human right to not be subject to. While the entity is maintaining 24-hour surveillance, which is an exceedingly violent sex offense committed by the state, doing so in remarkable methods such as helicopter to inflict psychological torture, methods of, while you are documenting the pattern of conduct, the demon possessed who engage in seeking to psychologically harm you, amplified audible activity crossing path with that. This is AVANATH that's going to be prosecuted, and they're going to be deported. If this is, and any gang stalking immigrant is going to be deported. And the crossing path, while the entity is not coincidentally, nor is it separate, that they're doing so in helicopters. So this is an entity that acts with impunity, disregard for the Constitution, disregard for their presence in this country. And this is again where it's relevant regarding that which those who are not natural born citizens. The demons are flying in circles in helicopter, and it's pointing directly to what the demon is being documented in text in the document entitled W.S.C. The people. All right. The entity is amplifying helicopter activity, and this is demonic pacing. They're doing so in what is engineered light. That's not sunlight. And the sun would not be rising, as I captured, at 7:18 in the morning, present over this building at 9 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock as I showed you today, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, where sunlight is piercing through the depths of the apartment, through the peephole, appearing, framing the ceiling and the wall behind the door at all hours of the day, both in the dark and during the day while the fake sun is remaining stationary. This is the city where the entity is engaged in massive surveillance and engages in psychological torture with the intent to communicate an impermissible threat. That is speaking to, again, the federal government is going to, they're going to produce the names, in other words, of the entity that's gang stalking, because that's what this is, and helicopter, because they're going to prison. And mental asylum for those that are engaging in gang stalking in commercial planes, gang stalking by living at a place of residence, which is a facilitating venue, not a private residence. And what you're looking at is ongoing pacing by demons, getting in their cars, driving on the street on Vine Avenues, pacing, walking into their apartment. That's AVANATH license plate 9ACS 305. He's going to federal prison. The adult occupants, where they are also in custody of minor children whom they employ, and engaging in the elements of monitoring, doing so on behalf of the corrupt and very heavily, there is no question regarding what the Ontario police are engaging in. You're witnessing again, first of all, it's relevant, the senior citizen, the elderly are engaged in domestic terrorism in the U.S. They're doing so with the United States government. Remember, the entity is keeping a fake sun, the scientific phenomenon, which I've already captured at Woodside Senior Apartments. I moved to Los Angeles, so then you're juxtaposing that specific environment. That's speaking to intent and malice, and this is impunity. While the entity maintains criminal surveillance in the sky space. That is, if you could see that, the entity is crossing path again by planes. This is what Alan D. WAPNER's Ontario International Airport, which is also going to be shut down, is engaging in. They're using smaller planes right now, but you've seen the Ontario International Airport while the fake sun hovers over this roof, literally over the roof that doesn't set on fire while the fake sun sits idle all day. And the people of the state live in that environment. Gang stalking, engaging in a massive sex offense, monitoring genitalia, monitoring every move, and monitoring what it is that you document on your phone about it. Okay, this is again third-party 5WUV715 that is engaged in the pattern of conduct, engaging in what is crossing a path on behalf of the state, and this is all impunity. This is why the whole property, AVANATH Capital Management, is engaged in profiting off of federal group stalking and monitoring, which is serving the purpose of malicious murder and kidnapping by a corrupt population. It is also exposing what is demon possession, and they are doing so in plain sight. So what I will document in writing while you're looking, demonic pacing, and this is public corruption that is shared by both the entity that is acting directly and vicariously. That's what the Ontario Police Department is engaging in, doing so by helicopter. And the demon possessed show that public safety concern. The public safety is concern is that the entity will sacrifice its own liberty. They will sacrifice themselves, meaning they will put their lives at risk. They'll kill themselves in order to harm the individual. They will sacrifice department governments. They will sacrifice their reputation. They will sacrifice their careers in law enforcement. They will sacrifice their freedom. They will sacrifice their property while they maintain. I want you to see right now what is underway. This is monitoring, stalking in the path with light while the entity flies over by helicopter. They're walking back in opposite directions. These are demons who are pacing, okay? And that's also impunity. While, again, this is what the demon in apartment number 55 is engaging in, and this is the demon in apartment number 56, all going to federal prison. All right, doing so on behalf of what is the Ontario Police Department equals federal prison, and it's also impunity while they do it right in your face. They are all engaged in Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. This is called stalking in the path with light. The entity does so while the entity flies over by helicopter and does so with complete disregard. This is speaking to the mental illness. These are psychopaths. All right, that is again 8FDE 449. They're going to federal prison. All the demons in units 33 through 64, everybody in this building who remain while the fake sun remains directly over this building, which is already published on the website. See, this is the P.O.C.wordpress.com. See the YouTube channel of the P.O.C. and you will see the scientific impossibility of not only the fake sun remaining in perfect alignment to my person while I remain inside of this apartment, but you also see the fake moon at night. That's exactly what I documented while the LAPD engaged in gang stalking. This is domestic terrorism and psychological torture by the government, which the corrupt police departments who are engaged in criminal surveillance, relying on the demon-possessed population who engage in the same exact pattern of conduct in a remarkable environment. That which is not possibly the sun, not only because people in an entirely different city, let alone county, but let's take it out of California. When you are in Texas and you're looking at the sun above you, the entity is keeping a fake sun, necessarily a stationary light source, hovering stationary all day long from the beginning to the end of the day. That is the removal of the mayor. That is the removal of the demon-possessed and corrupt police department engaging in kidnapping and murdering, not law enforcement. And as you see them gang stalking in helicopter, as you see them gang stalking, engaging in the elements of monitoring, light, relevant positioning, and audible activity, as they do so with the intent to psychologically torture, the more that I document this domestic terrorist that is unemployed and is being paid by the state to sit at home and engage in criminal surveillance, as I show the fact that they are demons, and all manner of impossible light activity covers this building. The fake sun remains all day, and engineered light remains inside of the apartment. Scientific impossibilities having nothing to do with the natural environment. They're exhibiting a disregard for the constitutional and human rights of another. These are psychopaths fully capable and desiring and willing, as you see, to kill themselves while they seek to murder another. They also intend to profit off of it. This is the system of targeting American citizens, ordinarily referred to as gang stalking. It is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is currently 5:15 p.m. That is not a sunset. That's engineered light. You are being introduced to the spiritual realm, which is regarding what is demonic. It's impossible that the sun is rising and setting at the same location. Okay, it's also impossible that sunlight is reaching underneath a covered patio, reflecting off of that patio, piercing through the window underneath the patio, and appearing inside of Tracy Banks's window while the blinds are closed. You're looking at the body of evidence. This is where an entity is stalking using helicopters. That's the intent to psychologically harm, to obstruct justice, and that's why they're all going to prison. They're doing so while they're demon number 55. Again, her license is 5WUV 715. She is going to prison, and that is the entity that she's gang stalking on behalf of while they maintain stationary presence. Right now on video, you're looking at them pace back and forth. What they're doing while I'm inside of the apartment is literally hovering over the apartment in helicopter, and the demons on Vine Avenue are pacing, and they're all in engineered light. This is revealing massive demonic activity, and this is what Satan is doing amongst a corrupt society. And I'm in California, so that's what I'm documenting. But the implications regarding the environment that it's occurring in, the behavior that you can, when you're recognizing the pattern of conduct that is criminal and is serving the purpose of murder and kidnapping by a corrupt government that has no probable cause cause of reasonable suspicion while it's engaged in this malicious system, that's speaking to what is going on in the rest of the states in the United States. It is domestic terrorism, and it is serving for prison for the entity that is, again, under the tutelage of Mike Lorenz. Again, before that, it was Derek Williams, the same exact pattern of conduct, including at the same venue, by the way, where the entity is keeping a fake son. And then you are aware of what is the malice and what is reasonably deduced. Not only is the mayor a gang stalker, you are aware of what the city is aware of. You're not ignorant about the fact that a son sits stationary over the building all day long where you live. And you are also acting with impunity while the demon possessed don't have to speak to you, but you're looking at what is impunity. Any of all the gang stalking immigrants are going to be deported. So I just want to be clear, because this is exhibiting actual hatred for our country, for the Constitution, for the privilege to be here, for the privilege to work and make a living, but it is not to serve the purpose of violating the constitutional rights and human rights of another, which again, if it applies, any gang stalking immigrant, no matter military status, no matter duration of time in this country, it is the immediate revocation for citizenship, and you will be deported. All right, and if you're talking about the city of Ontario is being documented while I remain at one venue, absolutely, based on the nature of the evidence, because the sun is not a stationary object such that it would sit over one apartment building, which is exactly what the evidence shows as I captured it again, January 10, 2025. Okay, and as I document that, as I capture screenshots, which are a means of highly illustrating the significance, the demon in apartment of 55, who was the means of amplified audible activity. This is a demon-possessed person who was aware of my every move. They're all violent sex offenders. They're monitoring my genitalia. They're stalking in the path. Even now, they're standing in engineered light. The sky space is speaking to the malice of the entity and how they're focused on you, and psychopaths like to outwardly demonstrate as though they're doing something else. And this is where they're also living under that specific environment where the fake sun is all day, is where the fake moon is at night. You're not doing anything other than gang stalking. You're witnessing the malice of psychopaths who are seeking to profit as an entity engaged in the system of sacrificing American citizens. It's satanic. It's murder and kidnapping, as it would be referred to under the law. The timing and presence of the audible activity of the Ontario Police Department, an entirely illegitimate agency that is going to be disbanded, is relevant to the intent to psychologically harm, while again the people of the state acting as an entity through the individual that is gang stalking at the facilitating venue of Woodside Senior Apartments inside of apartment 55 is a specific tactic intended to obstruct justice. She and everyone else is going to federal prison. You will see engineered light manifesting in the shade out of nowhere. They are not ignorantly in this environment. They're not ignorantly in this environment while the state stalks in planes and helicopters. They're not ignorantly in this environment while the entity is stalking my movement with noise, stalking my movement with light, stalking my movements as you are. It's evidence through the entity. The entire state is exposed as a stalker while you capture that scientific phenomenon of that which is not possibly the sun. As a matter of science, as a matter of common sense, as a matter of nature, with regard to what I'm showing, keeping it over me. Remember, at no point ever would West Covina have the sun over the West Covina Police Department, contrary to what I documented, while it remains stationary in alignment to my person at this venue, which is Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California. And so since I am here, this is impunity. They don't have to be outside because everyone that I'm walking by their apartment, they're all crossing paths. This is the purpose of having that specific environment. And it's the malice of an entity that is targeting. It's not a private residential area, or neighborhood or residence or property. It's a facilitating venue. All right, where everything is serving that criminal purpose, and that's also shown in the evidence. Going to federal prison is license plate 9CKS 542, and she is not apart or distinct from the criminal conduct while they're walking around in what is engineered light. This is my shadow that's enlarged in size, and this is the same light activity that you see while the fake sun is shining. It's not a natural environment. So this is speaking to the malice of demons that are gang stalking in the path while they are doing so on behalf of the state that is stalking right now in planes and helicopters. The entity does so with the intent to psychologically harm, harass, terrorize, and offend in order to, in other words, deter the target individual from reporting, documenting, publishing documentation as they are monitoring you. And this is what I'm speaking to. I'm going to zoom into the multiple shadows. Here's my hand here. All right, very faint. And this is the shadow of the gate. That's impossible light activity. And that is not the result of any sort of let your look. That's not going to be caused by any of that. This is the same light activity as I have shown you the fake sun right here over me, and I have the same exact light activity during the day. This is where the entity is stalking not exercising any authority as a legitimate law enforcement agency, as you are understanding and recognizing the malice of an entity that is gang stalking you where they live and gang stalking you with the state. And the state arrives in order to obstruct justice, communicating an unlawful threat that is shared by every single last one of them, irrespective of their age. The demons that are at this venue are all going to federal prison, including the one whose license plate I documented. All right. And with regard to the prosecution of the state, this is supporting the policy regarding domestic terrorism in the United States, deportation regarding all gang stalking immigrants. All right. It is currently, again, 5:21 p.m. This is P.O.C. This is my shadow appearing over here. The people of the state utilize any and everything. The dog barking is audible activity. This is impossible light activity that my shadow would be upright. This is accomplishing monitoring. And as you'll see in the images, the fake sun that remained here after 3 p.m. over the same building, creating light activity, bouncing off of 52's window and appearing on the wall, creating the appearance of that one. That's impossible light activity as well. They are all monitoring using any and every means. Anything that you can hear is audible activity in what is abnormal light. In an abnormal environment where a fake sun, not the natural environment, identified clearly in evidence so that you are able to see with your own eyes what is the malice of a corrupt entity engaged in public corruption, gang stalking American citizens. It is the removal of the fire department, the police department, the mayor, and everybody under his corrupt leadership. Paul Leon has been in office, gang stalking for 20 years. The Ontario Police Department engaged in kidnapping and seeking to criminally defame while gang stalking as a matter of documentation since 2018, 2019. The fire department kidnapping, American Medical Response kidnapping, that is speaking to what is removal of these corrupt offices. And also you're talking about removal of the corrupt airport. All right. These are demons that are pacing, parking in the spot, being in the gate, one after another, and you're aware of the impossible light activity. That's the significance of having headlights on in the abnormal environment. And this is maintaining that specific environment where the fake sun is present during the day. So you're understanding their role and maintaining elements, which is what the demon possess practice. It is currently 5:23 p.m. This is, again, Woodside Senior Apartments, and this is the prosecution of AVANATH Capital Management, who's going to be civilly and criminally prosecuted as well. These are the same actors who are in the morning under the fake sun, engaging in the same conduct with the same police department, the Ontario International Airport with the same population and under the same exact circumstances. This is the maintenance of that environment at nightfall. And it's a massive sex offense while you're subject to it. And that's also what the entity will be prosecuted as, violent sex offenders who are engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. It's currently 5:24 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, it is currently Friday, January 10th, 2024. Excuse me, it's 2025, and Happy New Year, by the way. I believe the last podcast I recorded was December 31st, 2024. So it is January 10th, 2025, correction, and it's currently 7:18 p.m. This is the P.O.C. and I wanted to go ahead and give some discussion, some analysis regarding the video that you heard. I did convert it to audio so that it can be published onto the P.O.C. podcast. And again, that video was captured at, let me eliminate the distractions in the background. That video was captured at 5:03 p.m. And what is relevant is not only the specific environment, as I've shown you, this is the specific environment with regard to what is documentation, that is solid proof, in other words, not hearsay, in order to be very easily defamed, which is criminal conduct upon a government that is engaged in criminally monitoring you, keeping you under surveillance, as you would refer to it as gang stalking you. I have referred to it as federal group stalking and monitoring. To have solid proof in order to guard oneself against what is anticipated, it is in conformity to the public entity's pattern of conduct for defamation. And it is not civil defamation, tortious defamation, which is relevant to what is pecuniary harm. It's criminal defamation. It's criminal activity that is committed by the government that is engaged in criminally monitoring you, keeping you under surveillance outside of any constitutional parameters, no authority under the law. The entity that is stalking does not have any reasonable suspicion or probable cause. That is not the basis for any any exposure you have to the state, any sort of encounter that you have with them, they are stalking you. And so they are violating your constitutional rights at the outset. They are maliciously doing so while masquerading, in other words, exercising fictitious authority as a legitimate law enforcement agency, exercising constitutional authority under the laws that exist. This is malice. Okay. So criminal defamation is relevant to what is within the pattern of conduct where the entity is not only targeting you and very demented and demonic. Okay. Demonic with regard to federal legislation, with regard to prosecution, the ordinary language that you're going to use in a tribunal. You're not necessarily going to be speaking about Satan. We're not speaking about spirits and demonic spirits. This is a courtroom. Okay. And so this is reference to what is malicious conduct, a malicious pattern of conduct, a malicious behavioral pattern. The environment is speaking to malice. It demonstrates malice. Also, the entity that is exercising things such as fictitious authority, such as engaging in what is living at a facilitating venue that is seeking to appear on its surface, and it is only surface deep, as a private residential neighborhood or property, where in reality, with regard to what you need, solid proof evidence, speaking to what is on its face, a scientific impossibility, something that can never occur naturally. And this is what everyone has been confronted with, which you cannot avoid. And it is bursting into the very courts where you are prosecuting the government for what is demonic. Okay. This is torturing American citizens. This is showing what is the malice, where the people of the state, the civilian population, is of the same condition. All right. They're a bunch of demons, in other words. That are gang stalking. Okay. So this is the malice whereby a population would like to, enjoy the constitutional rights of privacy, meaning you have the right to, as long as you get past the credit check, the criminal background check, and the property management company signs a lease with you and you're able to move in. That's all private conduct that's constitutionally protected. It's a contract between two private parties. Depending on the you could be living on state property, for example, but or government property, but nonetheless, it is protected under the Constitution because you don't have any malicious government conduct going on, such as federal group stalking and monitoring, where the sun, which is literally the hallmark for identifying the malice whereby a public entity is monitoring an American citizen, and monitoring in and of itself is demonic. Okay, that the government is engaging in demonic behavior is malicious. Okay, seeking to appear one way on the surface. No one is going to guess that the courthouse is full of demons, that the courthouse is engaging in what is an elaborate pattern of conduct seeking to kidnap, as opposed to engaging in what is the business of the people and engaging in what is, law and order, executing justice, abiding by the laws and conforming to the rules and the procedures and the laws, the constitutional laws, state and federal laws. This is and you reasonably assume this, but where you are understanding the pattern of conduct and you're recognizing it on its face by the specific environment. That is the sun, because I don't want to say a sun because that suggests that there's more than one. The sun is exclusive. That star, the sun, is stationary as a matter of solid proof evidence over one building for the duration of the day. That is how you gather evidence, which is also proof of that scientific phenomenon, which again, this precedes and provides context to everything that's happening in that remarkable environment, which is speaking to and revealing malice of that building, which is an apartment complex, which is not, in other words, private conduct. None of it is private. The effort to appear private, however, is the malice of that civilian population. And to exhibit such malice is to understand the greater context regarding a lot of propaganda that we as a country, as a nation, have been intentionally fed regarding mental illness. Okay, so the malice that is exhibited by the entity that is gang stalking an apartment complex, such as Woodside Senior Apartments, that malice, which is indicative of something that would be ordinarily referred to as a psychopath, where they are walking around as though they are free to do so, walking around as though they're not engaging in anything suspicious or unlawful unlawful, or while they're merely walking around, they're not doing anything wrong to any other person. All of this is malice that's occurring in that remarkable environment, which the targeted individual, an American citizen, must prove with independent corroborating evidence. Okay, this is probable cause to investigate for federal group stalking and monitoring, which is a demonic system where you will see the evidence of the sun, because there is only one, remaining stationary over one building for the duration of the day. Where the sun is in the morning, that is where the sun is in the evening. Where the sun is rising, that is where the sun is setting. And then there is the evidence of that remarkable occurrence, and then the evidence of the sun, and there is only one, no longer remaining stationary, which is proven as a matter of evidence. Never changing, can never, ever be reconciled. The fact that you capture it one time is sufficient because it's never naturally occurring, not even once. To capture that, and then also capture the evidence of the sun necessarily moving. This is dynamic, as the direct opposite of stationary, idle, all right, very slowly migrating from one side of the building to the opposite 8, 9, 10 hours later. That's not the sun. Neither is it possibly the sun where you are far from that documented occurrence at a single address, and yet the sun is remaining over the top of your head when you're traveling in a vehicle, traveling on a plane, traveling in a different state, traveling far from the location where you've captured that scientific phenomenon that exists on its face at that address. For it to be at any other address is impossible. Okay, in the ways in which I've shown. This is speaking to the malice of the civilian population. This is speaking to the malice of the government that is present vicariously through that civilian population and is present directly by planes and helicopters, police, fire, and ambulance, through the municipality, all the ways in which a government is functioning, and is maliciously doing so in that specific environment, which is entirely unnatural. And no one is reasonable. You're talking about what's reasonable. First of all, they're demons, so they are not actually ignorant. And under the law, there is a reasonable standard that, compared with what the target individual is experiencing on a daily basis, you have what is beyond any reasonable basis to be ignorant about this specific environment. Nobody has reported it. Nobody's taken any pictures of it, but you're talking about UFOs. You're talking about aliens. You're talking about what NASA's observing about the sun when they're flying up into space. And no one notices that the sun is stationary over one building in Ontario, California. Okay, no one notices that their shadows are flying about in all manner of direction, perpendicular, upright, magnified, as large as my person is standing in front of me. Okay, no one notices that. And that is also speaking to malice, because that's unreasonable. And it's also taken into context regarding all of the behavioral pattern of that entity. So this is speaking to what is criminal defamation, because it is within the state's pattern of conduct to criminally defame the character, to ruin the reputation of the one who is in fact being targeted by the state while the state is practicing witchcraft. This is the conduct of a witch coven. This is exposing public corruption, not only because the government is engaging in what are malicious manners of targeting someone. In other words, targeting them in an environment that is irreconcilable with nature. Who has heard of a fake sun? Okay. And this is very easy for demons, because that's what they are. But for what are the people of the state, because you will be identified as a third party and you will be prosecuted as a third party, where anything that you are saying and doing is criminally facilitating the state's criminal conspiracy to murder and kidnap, because that's why it's gang stalking someone. You are not only identified as a third party living at the specific environment, in the specific environment, present in the specific environment, engaging in the criminal elements of monitoring, you are identified as a third party group stalker, criminally facilitating a government's malicious system of systematically murdering, slaughtering, and kidnapping American citizens by virtue of anything you say and do that is facilitating it. That is, in its effect, it's helping the state accomplish that criminal purpose, and ignorance is no defense. It is no defense. All right. So this is causing for the nation to take very seriously the criminal system of federal group stalking and monitoring, which you can be prosecuted for on the venue of the internet. You can be prosecuted for in the states. OK. And you are not under any, you have no constitutional protection from it, where you are engaging in it, which is something that is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. This is what California is engaging in. California is the billboard, the example for what the states are engaging in, capable of engaging in, and it is something that serves for a very intense and very profusely enforced constitutional and human rights of American citizens. And any form of facilitation can very rapidly result in, actually, based on the level of facilitation, you're talking about federal prison. Okay. And based on the mental instability exhibited in that facilitation, mental asylums. You're talking about what is already demented on its face, the specific environment, which is a means of psychological torture, a fake sun remaining over you specifically for the duration of the day. And that is shown by evidence. The fake sun is perfectly aimed over me inside of this this apartment. But I'm referencing, you've seen the documentation in the hotels I stayed in various cities and counties. And even as I went to cross state lines in Nevada, that is irreconcilable with remaining stationary all day long at Woodside Senior Apartments. And this is something that you must prove with independently corroborating evidence, because the entity's purpose in targeting you in a demonic and psychopathic manner is to falsely depict you as paranoid, a paranoid schizophrenic, perhaps even bipolar, hallucinations that you suffer from, any sort of mental illness, in other words. That's P.O.C. Textbook P.O.C. Criminal defamation. In other words, this is how the entity will accomplish kidnapping you, by either falsely depicting you as a criminal or falsely depicting you as mentally ill, which accomplishes the entity that is exercising fictitious authority to take you into custody. All of this is a criminal act, and it will never convert to lawful conduct while the entity is engaged in, and it's started at the outset of federal group stalking and monitoring. Regardless of the fact that they went through exercising fictitious authority to have a hearing on your mental capacity, have a hearing on what the mental health workers concluded and documented about you and assigned you to regarding all of those are all criminal acts. It never converts into lawful conduct by the state. It is how the government kidnaps American citizens. It is the process that has been abused for the criminal purposes of a corrupt entity. It will never convert to criminal conduct. It starts with a kidnapping, and it is continued with cooperative facilitation by the state, every mental health professional, okay, manufacturing information of what is very likely a traumatized person, not a mentally ill one. And you are reasonably traumatized where you are subject to a program of psychological torture in that environment that is psychologically harmful as well. Realizing you're being targeted as it's exhibited in an unnatural environment through the behavioral pattern of the people who are in that environment that act in concert with the government that arrives in police vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, helicopters, and airplanes, particularly as you happen to speak of the fact that you're being targeted, or have the audacity to document the ways in which you're being targeted, even while the demon possessed are monitoring your very thoughts. As you are crying about it, thinking about it, feeling fearful about it, anxious about it in your mind, repeating that conduct, which is how the demon possessed are engaged in psychological torture. And all you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is document it. This is not conduct that is incapable of being proved with tangible evidence. The specific environment is corroborating what it is that you are thinking about and what you are subject to in that environment. It shall result in the prosecution of the state. It's not solely existing in your mind, which is insufficient to prosecute in a court of law. The specific environment is the direct evidence that you are indeed being targeted. The state's pattern of conduct is what is underway. The state is targeting you. The police never even have to arrive on the grounds to maintain surveillance. They're engaged in the malicious conduct of just parking in the shopping plaza across the street, being at your neighbor's house around the block, while the fake sun remains over you all day long, while they sound sirens that you can hear where you are, while they maintain things such as helicopter activity, even at a distance, never flying over your head, like they foolishly and had the audacity to do in thousands of videos that I've documented. Okay, but they don't even have to do that. They can be at a distance. It's called relevant positioning. It is stalking. It is stalking by the state. And by the way, there is no such thing as what is, I don't want to say, I'll take that back. I don't want to say that there is no such thing, but with regard to understanding the malicious purpose of federal group stalking and monitoring by a government that is relying on the civilian population to keep you under surveillance, to keep you subject to an unabated program of psychological torture. What I mean is ceaseless monitoring. And let me be clear again. Not only are you recognizing the spiritual realm, this is demonic activity by the specific environment. The fact that the sun, and I'm referencing a sun because we're going to start with logic. There's one sun, the natural environment. Well, the sun is remaining stationary over me at a specific address. And so since it's impossible for the sun to ever appear in Nashville, Tennessee, for example, you are understanding what we are all subject to, which is a very specific environment, speaking to what defies nature, logic, science, common sense, right? Based on, again, rudimentary understanding of the things that we have been taught about the so-called natural environment in fifth grade. Okay. So this is in like clearly in violation of your common sense, especially as you can see the hovering nature of the stationary sun, the light that's inside of the apartment building, the sun that is above the building. No matter how much it is hovering, it is still above the building, and yet I'm capturing light shooting like a laser straight through the window while the blinds are closed, touching the walls and the depths of the kitchen, that appearing for the duration of the day. This is monitoring content in the background, but understand the light activity that's present inside of that venue, and doing so while the entity is maintaining that specific environment. The entity is doing so while you are looking at what is irreconcilable light activity. So the entity is doing so in a manner that on its face defies common sense. The sun that is above us is not creating light that's shooting horizontally through windows, and also at the same time reflecting off of those windows, and the appearance, the shape of the windows is appearing as light on the concrete. That's exactly what you will see in the images the plethora of images that I capture on a daily basis. But yes, I also captured it today, January 10th, 2025. So the entity is maintaining what is on its face, the peculiar light activity, and also the specific environment, which is peculiar. That's relevant to what is malice, everything that's happening with regard to the people of the state who you hear entering into the apartment, the people of the state who are on Tracy Banks's phone. These are the demon possessed who know exactly what it is that I'm talking about at the moment she enters. This is the same third party, by the way, Tracy Banks. There is a wealth of documentation regarding her criminal conspiracy to murder me. She is a witch. She practices witchcraft. She's literally demon possessed, and she is engaged in demonic conduct while she walks in the apartment, turns the light on. Her phone is a means of audible activity, crossing path. As you are aware of, if you're not, go to the pattern of conduct. This is the POC.wordpress.com. And the behavioral pattern, the pattern of conduct, the P.O.C. is broken down into what the demon possessed are doing. All they're doing is pacing all around you in the specific environment. They're monitoring you by their person in that light. That's day and night. That light is present and includes artificial light. So she walks in. Hi, Erica. That's audible activity. She's got her device. This is Title 18 federal stalking underway. Her phone records are a means of prosecuting the people of the state. They are maliciously and knowingly engaging in that pattern of conduct with Tracy Banks. This is, again, speaking to mental illness, very serious and severe federal consequences. The demons that are capable and willing to kill themselves in order to target the American citizen whom they are gang stalking, will do the same by placing themselves in documentation to be used in court. Very easy to identify the name of this third party on her phone. I document them on a regular basis every single day. It never fails. Another demon is on her phone, signing up for federal prison. She's pacing in and out. She's in light activity. It is POC. It's also malice. Okay, so the entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct and does so in a specific environment where nothing is private, nothing is separate or distinct from that pattern of conduct that's established. Nothing, and you're going back to what is common sense, where you're seeing something as impossible to naturally occur, such as a stationary sun over one building. You are understanding what is providing context to everything that's happening in that environment, especially where you see something as spectacular as heavy helicopter activity, which no one is disturbed by, no one is noticing, no one pays attention to. But again, things such as quietly opening up the front door in order for me to capture video of helicopter, that's what creates a disturbance. That's what's brought to the attention by the people of the state who are monitoring you, okay? Not the fact that in this multifamily zone, the entity is hovering over the apartment building, creating sensational activity such as vibrating the apartment building, amplifying the sound of helicopter, amplifying the sound of the Union Pacific train. Impossible to naturally hear. Helicopter is not vibrating the whole apartment building, and I'm on the first floor. The sun is not stationary over an apartment building for the duration of the day. Walking in the apartment like Tracy Banks is doing is not going to cause the ceiling and the wall as a third party above me is gang stalking together, okay? This is the pattern of conduct where demons are maintaining the elements of monitoring. And these are the same demons that engaged in conduct. I will go ahead and speak to what you've seen. If you're not sure, the pattern of conduct is that which you is witnessed by the 9/11 terrorist attacks. All right, the entities engaged in a pattern of conduct using commercial planes, and that's exactly what was used to murder thousands of American citizens in New York on the infamous holiday that has been used to celebrate as a tradition now. What was the mass murder of American citizens in ways in which the entity currently employs to terrorize American citizens. It is domestic terrorism. And it is not distinct from what was used on 9/11 by who we were told were enemies from abroad. But again, that's only what we were told. The entity that is gang stalking using the Ontario International Airport commercial planes, gang stalking through the people of the state who live in the country, those whose name you know, your blood related to them. They're engaging in the same exact demonic behavioral pattern, exhibiting the same level of malice, which is mental illness of psychopaths who are showing obsession, not exhibiting any sense of normalcy. This is understanding the demon possessed who are obsessed with continuing that ritualistic behavior of crossing path, creating light activity and audible activity. And that's exactly what's underway. So the entity is doing so, and I want to make sure that's the substance of what I'm capturing. This afternoon, in this environment where the fake sun, as I'm documenting it, sunlight is shooting through the peephole. Through the peephole, you can see it concentrated on the palm of my hand. You'll see it concentrated on the kitchen wall in the depths of the apartment, and you will see it hours later doing the same thing. I've captured that terrorizing event as after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, where at no time of the day ever is sunlight from the sun that is above us shooting sunlight at a downward trajectory, and somehow also horizontally some sort of perpendicular angle occurs, and it shoots horizontally through windows, horizontally through peepholes. That's a very concentrated mechanism where light is not shooting through. That's not normal sunlight. It's what I've referred to as engineered light. Okay. What you're listening to in the background is in furtherance of seeking to commit malicious murder. This is what Tracy Banks and the third party on her phone is doing. It's the pattern of conduct underway through the use of communication devices, which is federal stalking under Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. Tracy Banks engages in this with Daryl Mandy, with Eric Corey Spencer, who they're both going to federal prison, with the people of the state, everyone that's in her phone book. They don't even have to be in her phone book. She can be on the phone literally with a demon-possessed gang stalker who she's never spoken to. Understand, you're focused on elements. She's walking around in engineered light. She's walking back and forth. Hi, Erica, of someone that's gang stalking you. And there's a wealth of evidence that Tracy Banks is doing just that, is malice. So, and it is on behalf of the same police department that you saw on video, hovering in helicopter, where you see the so-called sunset at the same location in alignment to me where I have already documented the sunrise. That's understanding the malice. That's speaking to everything that's happening in that environment. So federal stalking with the state is the basis of federal prison, and that's exactly what's underway using a communication device. It is serving for what is mental illness also being exhibited while the entity is engaged in gang stalking, and the third parties entered with knowledge of what it is that I'm speaking about as I'm speaking of it. And this is the same demonic pacing that you see this third party engaging in while the fake sun is present in the morning, while engineered light is shooting through the peephole, while engineered light is appearing on the kitchen wall, and they're engaged in the same exact pacing conduct that is underway right now, with the help of a demon that is on the phone monitoring. So the demon in Unit 55 is pacing around monitoring. The entity, the same police department, is maintaining the same elements with the civilian population that is doing so at what is Woodside Senior Apartments. This is breaking down the system of what is federal group stalking and monitoring, an organized system of crimes that's underway in California, serving for what is the systematic demise, kidnapping, and murder of American citizens. So I want to make sure that that's clear. The same same demon. This is license plate 5WUV715 at 7:44 p.m. In concert with Tracy Banks, who is exhibiting mental illness. She is going to a mental asylum, and so is the demon inside of Unit 55. They are pacing. She's stomping above while the demon Tracy Banks is on speakerphone with a third party, also exhibiting impunity, also exhibiting malice. This is malice of psychopaths who are obsessively maintaining elements, light, audible activity, and presence, which is relevant positioning. And this is on behalf of an entity because the traffic all around the venue, the air traffic above the venue, is accomplishing what is massive surveillance. And this is what an entity is doing on an obsessive and ceaseless basis. And that's exactly what you were listening to on video. Now, the entity is engaging in this conduct and absent solid proof evidence. The entity seeks to engage in criminal defamation, which the Ontario Police Department and Tracy Banks, who is gang stalking still to date, she is literally waiting to be arrested in the nearby grocery store and taken in because she's going to a mental asylum for the rest of her life for conspiring with the state to murder me, because that's why the government is gang stalking. And this is already conclusively established by evidence, evidence that is speaking to a demonic environment, a demonic pattern of conduct, speaking to what is also, again, by virtue of exposing it, what cannot be disregarded and ignored, not by law enforcement. And I'm not talking about the corrupt police that are gang stalking throughout the state of California. I am talking about the federal government, which is inherent to American citizens enforcing their constitutional and human rights while the state conspires to murder and kidnap them. It is domestic terrorism and psychological torture. That's exactly what Tracy Banks engaged in while she walks by and the demon above is stomping and the demon is on the speakerphone, acts as though they're not doing anything. That is psychological harm. That's psychologically harmful to the target individual. And that's what you saw on video as well, as you are looking at the systematic maintenance of the elements of monitoring. It is also timing. The Ontario police arrive, and I put that in air quotes because they're already present, like they're present now. Could you read it to me again? But they sound helicopter activity while I am maintaining documentation efforts. I am, in other words, on my device that is under surveillance, and I am typing in text, in other words, the evidence regarding the what the third party in Unit 55 is engaging in, which is ongoing patrolling like Tracy Banks is doing. And this is a demon that has her hazard lights on in the parking lot while she's walking an engineered light outside, doing the same thing that the Ontario Police Department were doing while the demon in the Jeep has his headlights on facing me, and the demon comes down from apartment number 56 with her dog, handing it to the demon driving the Jeep. They walk toward each other pacing. They walk away from each other pacing. They're an engineered light with a method of light in the path. That's what Tracy Banks is doing, the same exact thing. And this demon, they like to seem like look like they're doing something, and all they're doing is gang stalking. The light is abnormal. This is where the fake sun, and as you saw in that video, the fake moon is directly above me at this venue, where the specific environment speaking to the evidence of an entity that is stalking, that is focused, that is targeting one person. All right, the malice of that conduct, which is demonic, the malice of that environment, which is demonic, is speaking to and revealing the malice. And it is shared by the sheriff's department that participates and criminally facilitates kidnapping and criminal defamation, and the courthouse that knowingly and intentionally and maliciously engages in kidnapping and criminal defamation. This is how the state accomplishes what is the objective of federal group stalking and monitoring, which is the organized system of murdering, kidnapping American citizens. It is domestic terrorism. It is psychological torture. It is not distinct from what happened on 9/11, using commercial planes crashing into the the Twin Towers in Nevada, not Nevada, in New York. Where the entity, and what am I speaking to? I'm speaking to the specific environment that has been present for years. You just have not been paying attention to it. What is the entity being engaged in domestic terrorism? That those that are flying commercial planes are living in the United States, coming from another destination into the United States, coming from the United States, exiting, going into foreign land. They are engaged in that pattern of conduct. And the Ontario International Airport, Alaska Airlines engages in international flight. Southwest Airlines goes to destinations such as Oakland, San Francisco, Sacramento, for example, and they're crossing path. There is no respecter of names, if you will, meaning all of the airlines are gang stalking in California and at the Ontario International Airport. They are engaged in Title 18, just like Tracy Banks is exhibiting. Surveillance via communication devices. Criminal monitoring. Criminal monitoring, which is the way in which the demon-possessed are not only engaged in an unreasonable search of your communication devices, meaning everything that's happening on your phone, on your laptop, on your desktop computer, on your iPad, on your iPhone, on your watch, your iPhone watch. I don't do Apple. I do have a MacBook, but I don't really do the iPhone watch. So forgive me if I'm not referring to that correctly. But that's a communication device that's on your wrist. These are all devices that are under surveillance. Everything that you're doing is not private. Just because you put that you don't want to share it with your Instagram feed, or you've turned off the option, you selected, no, I don't want to share my information of what I'm doing with Apple. You're under surveillance, and we all are under surveillance, and this is the reality. What I am subject to is the entity essentially put a contract on my life and sought to murder me, but sought to do so maliciously, making it appear as though not only have I lost my mind, this is why the entity arrested me, which is a kidnapping. That's why the entity arrested me, because I lost my mind. That's why the entity put me in a ward, because I was violent and I lost my mind where they have been engaged in this pattern of conduct. That's criminal defamation that serves the criminal purpose of kidnapping. All right. And it is the practice of witchcraft. All right. In case you did not know, defamation, that's the legal term with regard to what the demon possessed practice. It's nothing but word curses. It's spell work. All right. It is the practice of witchcraft. And this is what the witch coven is practicing in the state. And this is what the government officials are engaged in. And they do so with the civilian population. The civilian population that you hear in the background is documented as a matter of conclusive evidence, defaming, falsely depicting themselves as having any sort of authority or ability to represent me personally, legally, in any capacity. I am a legally trained professional. The only thing regarding my inability to practice law is because I have not paid the fees in order to maintain current licensure. That has nothing to do with my ability to practice law. Now, I cannot practice law under the state of California because of professional responsibilities, which is paying your yearly fees. That has nothing to do with competence. There have never been any discipline issues. I do not have to explain myself. I want to let you know what is criminal defamation on its face. The entity sought to criminally defame a legally practiced professional. This is a matter of independently corroborating evidence, speaking to what, in other words, is the motive of an entity that would target a lawyer. Okay, who only is incapable of paying the yearly fees for maintaining that bar licensure status because the entity has been targeting me. All right. So this has nothing to do with incompetence, nothing to do with any disciplinary issues, nothing to do with just forfeiting all that hard work that I put in, paying for my own, financing my own education to get through college and law school. Nobody helped me with that. No one's credit assisted me with that. The entity is engaging in what is targeting somebody that is fully capable of representing herself in every capacity. And the entity has, in conformity to the pattern of conduct, not only engaging in what is federal group stalking monitoring, but also in the corrupt courts who are seeking to achieve the objective of kidnapping via criminal defamation, falsely depicting as a criminal who is in need of what is mental attention, that like you're in some way or another suffering from some sort of mental capacity. That is textbook P.O.C. While they are ironically exhibiting severe mental illness, not only based on the fact that they're all living in a circus environment that no one seems to notice, but based on their behavioral patterns, and you are listening to it. This is actually a raging psychopath that is trying to calmly compose their hostility while audible activity and light activity and psychotic pacing is underway. It is the P.O.C. The entity is doing so on an ongoing basis, and this is exactly what the demon in number 55 directly above was engaging in as I began documenting in images, then capturing very probative, highly probative screenshots, all right, of the comparing the fake sun at 11 a.m., the fake sun that's still at the same building at 3:33 p.m. And as I began capturing those screenshots, this is what prompts me to start taking pictures. The entity is engaged in a ceaseless psychological torture while you're being monitored. What is monitored? Every move you make. All right. You're also being monitored with regard to your thoughts, even your responses. An entity that wants to offend you, an entity that wants to harass you, an entity that wants to scare you will engage in what it is observing about your responses. That is, in other words, they're studying you. And they're seeking to torment you. And that is appearing within the context of what they engage in and how you respond to it. And you don't have to say anything out loud. This is a demonic system, the evidence of what it is that I am speaking to you Is no longer capable of being just debated and pontificated in some sort of theory and some sort of thing or notion that I cannot prove. The fact of the sun staying stationary over one building all day long is the proof of what is beyond any natural environment and any natural behavior by human beings. Okay. And that's exactly, it's not just the sun, but also the engineered light, which is a distinct method of maintaining surveillance and that specific environment. And why is that? Because when the front door is closed and the fake sun is over the apartment building, there is no sunlight that's causing the the light that's streaming across the ceiling above the front door and down the east living room wall. That has nothing to do with the sun, the natural environment. If you still want to contend that there is one distinct from what I have shown you, that which is a scientific impossibility, or the fake sun. Either way you want to argue it, neither you cannot reasonably contend that. It has nothing to do with sunlight. The engineered light is speaking to, again, the demonic. Okay, that's also revealing malice, where you're walking around in that, where you're making any noise in it. All right, you are engaging in that which is accomplishing demonic conduct intended to monitor someone. It occurs with some simultaneity to their movements, with simultaneity to something that they may say or think about. Demons who are monitoring your thoughts, monitoring your dreams when you're unconscious, and they don't like it. They're triggered by it while they're gang stalking you, and they engage in that activity creation, appearing out of nowhere, walking around in that engineered light. Okay. Or not appearing out of nowhere, maintaining presence, or just keeping noise while they're right in front, conspicuously stalking, in other words, conspicuously, and maintaining audible activity. That's exactly what's underway. Doing so using a communication device is the Title 18, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2 method for engaging in the elements of monitoring. And so I'm going through a lot of analysis right now, but I want to make sure that it's clear that I do argue for the support, I do support the expansion of specific language regarding not only, as I have revealed it, what the entity is engaging while it's gang stalking you physically. Okay, stalking in the path, that's relevant positioning, which is occurring conspicuously and inconspicuously. In other words, the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking inconspicuously right now. No helicopter activity is heard. The entity is gang stalking, maintaining, and the pattern of conduct is already proven. So I've already established everything that I am stating. Again, see the pattern of conduct website. This is the POC.wordpress.com, and the YouTube channel, the P.O.C. So nonetheless, the entity is maintaining inconspicuous presence, all right? Not only based on the population, okay, people that I don't know living off of Mission Boulevard in Ontario, California, and that are maintaining presence in the zone of relevant positioning. The entire city is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. The entire city is maintaining its presence by driving along Vine Avenue, G Street, Euclid Avenue, all around, in other words, relevant positioning. The entity is maintaining aerial surveillance. I've already established all angles of this POC. We're stalking by a population, conspicuously and inconspicuously. It's ceaselessly underway. While demons, not normal people, not normal whatsoever, but the intent to appear so while living under a fake sun and at night a fake moon, in light which is not sunlight, shooting through peepholes, streaming across the ceiling, reaching underneath covered patios, appearing through out of nowhere in the dark, okay, maintaining what are perpendicular, magnified, upright shadows, multiple shadows. This is malice. This is not a normal population. This is where surveillance is underway, and the entity is exhibiting its mental illness. Ironically, when seeking to criminally defame the one whom a population is targeting. This is domestic terrorism. All right, and this is underway while you use your phone. This is underway while you have any sort of conversation. All you have to do is say hi. You don't have to say a word. You could be like the employee here, walking in and out of his apartment and maliciously engaging in the pattern of conduct intentionally and knowingly and in concert with the Ontario Police Department. That is in real time. That is an impermissible threat, which you will see if you go to the YouTube channel or my website, but you heard it as I'm describing it on the podcast, because you cannot see what is only audible for the podcast purposes. But this is a malicious engagement, and how, because they're living in the specific environment and you're not ignorantly or accidentally doing so. All right. And it is unreasonable to contend that not only have I documented this same exact pattern of conduct here at this venue in the city. I've documented it at more than one venue in this city, and I've documented it outside of this city and outside of this county and outside of this state, where at any single one of these different venues, the sun would never be stationary for the duration of the day for a prolonged portion of the day. It's not moving, it's staying over me. And if I move from that one location at that venue, say in the middle of the day, it's there from the morning, and then wherever it is I move at any point of the day. And from that location, it continues a very slow migration in whatever direction west is. Okay, it is rising and setting over me. That is understanding how you are recognizing, how the federal government is recognizing and has probable cause to investigate what would be the claim of an American citizen who is being targeted by the state governments, the United States government in the states, throughout the states, in other words, the territorial jurisdiction of the U.S., where the states are indeed targeting American citizens in the ways in which the parameters of the system that I have thoroughly broken down with regard to relevant positioning, with regard to methods of light activity, and with regards to what is audible activity. And it all is relevant to what are demonic features. It's not the sun that's stationary over you. Whether I sit still all day long, it's over me, or whether I move from place to place, it remains over me. That's not the sun. It is also, and you are also corroborating that evidence, because wherever you are, whatever state you're in, the sun cannot remain over me all day long if you're looking at it over you in another state. And you don't even have to be in, I'm not talking to anyone in California, because the entire state of California is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. Okay. However, the sun is not over Uber headquarters in San Francisco, California, while it is remaining stationary over me at Woodside Senior Apartments. Okay. That is capturing the direct evidence where a government is targeting an American citizen, and maliciously so, in order to falsely depict that targeted individual who suffers no mental incapacity whatsoever, in order to commit malicious murder while that pattern of conduct is underway, while they are ceaselessly and relentlessly engaged in psychological torture in order to mentally and emotionally break down that individual, and until they get into a circumstance where they can take their life, and no one would question about the circumstances. The entity is likely maintaining a false defamatory narrative regarding, the systematic breakdown of all the relationships in their life. Everyone in their life is monitoring them and gang stalking them. The ongoing systematic breakdown of their career, they're being gang stalked at work. They're being targeted in the workplace. All right. The ongoing breakdown of even when they're out in public, the entire state, the city, the county is targeting you. All right. And the entity is engaging in what is a malicious and a terrorizing system of psychological torture that is 24 hours a day, and what is stalking conspicuously and inconspicuously. And yes, you are stalking in a specific environment where you live. It is not traditional stalking, which is only occurring in the natural environment. Okay. Where you are protected under state and federal laws to be where you live or you work, and not be found liable for federal group stalking and monitoring. That is stalking where you live, stalking where you work, stalking at the public venue of the city mall, because that's exactly what you're doing in the specific environment. The entity is doing so, and this is what you'll see on video. The entity is engaged in psychological torture 3:33 p.m. until 5:03 p.m. That's when the video starts of the Ontario Police Department. They were monitoring the entire time. Okay, so you're talking about what is engaging in the elements of monitoring of audible and light activity, because they're always present. That is relevant positioning. They're always present directly and vicariously. The entity sought to communicate the highest threat, which is where police departments are engaged in exhibiting demon possession and engaged in criminally facilitating and directly engaging in what is federal group stalking and monitoring. That's domestic terrorism, while police departments are stalking you. And the only reason why police departments that are bearing weapons and exercising fictitious authority, necessarily so under the Constitution, state and federal, while they have none, is because they are seeking to engage in commit malicious murder and kidnapping, which the Ontario Police Department has engaged in multiple criminal acts of kidnapping with the very people of the state who you heard monitoring in real time on this podcast today, right now. Okay. That's why they are subject to disbanding, and for them to appear engaging in video again on another day, another year, is speaking to, again, the prosecution, the permanent removal from law enforcement, the removal of the mayor, It's not an aside. I was going to say as an aside, it's actually not. It's directly relevant. This is exposure of public corruption of the entire city, while a facilitating venue was found to be an apartment complex in the middle of the city, where the specific environment, including the sun, is stationary over the apartment building. That's exposing the entire city, which is exposing the county. And that is relevant to what is the state. Okay, but the evidence goes well beyond that. The documentation expands years long, and also the benefit of juxtaposition. You can juxtapose this venue in Ontario with where I lived and remained and worked in Los Angeles, California, where the Los Angeles Police Department and Karen Base and the Ontario Police Department and Paul Leon have no prayer, literally they don't, based on their condition, but also in federal court with regard to what is exposing public corruption, exhibiting what is the pattern of conduct of domestic terrorism and psychological torture, federal group stalking and monitoring that is underway in LA County and what is San Bernardino County in Ontario, California. And because it is happening on both of these domestic terrorist leaders' watches, they shall be removed summarily. Okay, it is beyond dereliction of duty. You are a part of that community, and Paul Leon has been engaged in this criminal system. He's been gang stalking since 2005. He's got 20 years. And again, I also advocate what is changing the laws, especially where the entity is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring amongst the states. You have a corrupt terrorist leader, domestic terrorist leader, Paul Leon, who's been in office as the mayor for 20 years, and no mayor, no gang stalking mayor, no demon-possessed gang stalking sex offender should hold any position esteeming themselves as a mayor for 20 years, or any mayor should be able to hold this kind of tenure in office. This is not a dynasty. You are not a king. And I contend that this is where this sort of public corruption festers. And so I do support what is changing state laws where mayors are capable to hold more than two terms in office. And after that, there is no more. After that, okay, you've got a fake pastor. He's a demon-possessed terrorist leader, domestic terrorist leader. Paul Leon knows all about the police department, whom at the moment that I'm speaking of, this demon that's engaged in gang stalking in Ontario, California, which he has been engaged in and criminally facilitating, and is fully aware of the millions would be in 2025, billions of dollars spent on criminal surveillance, not training for emergencies that you see it's happening in Los Angeles. You know what LAPD has been doing. They haven't, the Los Angeles County Fire Department, they haven't been training for real-time emergencies. They've been using their helicopters. They've been using their manpower on gang stalking American citizens like myself, because that's exactly what I was documenting. And it is no surprise where they don't have the training, the personnel, the ability to handle that size of an emergency. Typically, the entity is manufacturing such emergencies and using the corrupt insurance agencies in the state, who are also engaged in Title 18 federal stalking. They're also engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. You go into the insurance office, the fake sun is over that office. There are a bunch of gang stalking demons in California, including the insurance agencies, where this corrupt system, where you can, in California, with the demon-possessed fire department, set your house on fire. Go away and come back to your house on fire, it being gone, and you are able to get a new home. This is how the corrupt system is working. They are benefiting, and they claim the environment is the reason, and I'm showing you what is no natural environment. And so it is not the sun that is the cause for what are these fires that are happening every summer. You're witnessing what is, right now we're in the winter, okay? So, and I do not find it to be a coincidence that this sort of occurrence is happening regarding also simultaneous with what God is revealing about what California has been engaged in. And it is wicked. It is wicked. It's no no surprise to me that it happens to be burning, And I say that I'm fully cognizant of the loss that the people of the state, because that's what they are. The people of the state are suffering while they've been engaged in domestic terrorism for years. Right. So this isn't to say or taking pleasure in the suffering of others, because that would be a gang stalking, demon possessed group stalker. It is, however, speaking to what is looking at a lot of what the entity has practiced as a corrupt system. And so it doesn't look like you're benefiting from this corrupt system right now. And this is we're in winter. I believe. January, approaching winter. If we're not already in winter, I believe we're in winter. And this is outside of something that's happening in the midst of the burning summer. And the fake sun is remaining over me at Woodside Senior Apartments, where they have this burning of the Pacific Palisades. I want to be clear, who is going and putting these fires out? The same gang stalking fire departments that are already on record in my documentation. Who is it that's being where they're in the neighborhoods in Los Angeles County? The entire Los Angeles, the city and Los Angeles County is a gang stalking entity. All right. They've been engaged in that which is exceedingly wicked, the systematic demise of American citizens. And I am one of them that documents it. No, I do not find it to be a coincidence that this happens to be the current circumstances. While I do not rejoice in the suffering of others, I am not surprised by it. That's what I am stating. Okay? Los Angeles has been engaged in domestic terrorism and psychological torture for years, as a matter of my evidence, 2020. Okay? The same entity that I documented in 2024, where, by the way, there would never be a sun at any time of day in Los Angeles, as I already documented preceding my relocation to Los Angeles. The entity kept the fake sun in Ontario over this venue in particular, at all hours of the day, including the Ontario City Hall, where domestic terrorist leaders like Paul Leon, who is absolutely not only unfit based on the fact that he's been there for 20 years, that is extraordinarily ridiculous, also because he is entirely corrupt. All right, domestic terrorism happening on your watch. It is unreasonable to suggest that this level of criminality, what is necessarily millions of dollars, 24-hour surveillance. You're spending a lot of money to keep planes, helicopters, not just commercial planes from the airport. The entity is using smaller planes, like I also documented in the video. That's a lot of money. That includes a lot of manpower. And you are not ignorant about what the police department is doing. You're not ignorant about what the sheriff's department is doing. And you're certainly not ignorant about it having 20 years in. Okay. Not only he is a billboard for what is changing the laws. No one should be in position of mayor in order to have the ongoing festering of such corruption in the city for such a prolonged period of time. As you are looking in and investigating and looking into these names of these demons who are in government positions, you will see a lot of common names such as Alan D. Wapner, the gang stalker, Omnitrans. He's in a position of leadership over that, including the gang stalker of the Ontario International Airport. He also happens to be a gang stalker on the Ontario City Hall. These are the faces. These are the names as you become familiar with the criminal system and those who are in positions of government. There are no coincidences here, by the way, under the fake sun. Amongst the identical behavioral pattern in that spectacular, remarkable, very specific and unique environment, there's no coincidences, and it's unreasonable to contend as such. There is also no coincidence when you have the sort of conduct that I have been subject to, seeking to falsely depict me as one that is incapable of speaking for myself, representing myself, lacking anything mentally, intellectually, personally, professionally. Could not be farther from the case. And it is those that actually are grand contrast to me personally, professionally, that have made such defamatory claims against me. And it is the motive for what is seeking to maliciously murder and kidnap someone. And that's the system that the state of California practices with the population. It's a system. All right. So it's not new. And it's also witchcraft. So this is what you need to know. And it is amongst the demon possessed who are currently going through a very difficult time of acres and acres of land burning. And this is the same state that has been engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring for years. So I just want to put that out there. I want to speak to the pattern of conduct that is also underway on the venue of the internet. Now, with regard to understanding what is monitoring is, again, an unreasonable search for electronic information in your communication device. It's in violation of your constitutional rights, and you need to know wherever you are in this country, the Constitution is still alive and well, regardless of whether the government violates it. Okay? So that's not changing the power of the Constitution at all, or the relevance of the Constitution, because the government is in violation of it. You're talking about what is your ability to enforce your constitutional and human rights under that Constitution that the state governments are violating. You are under surveillance. You don't actually have any privacy. And monitoring is that which is occurring on all of your devices, which is speaking to, again, online surveillance, and also that which you contribute to it. You contribute to it. Everything that you're putting online, and this isn't to incite fear, not at all. This is for information because you need to know. You need to know. So this is for informational purposes. This is just the reality of where we are at in history, and this has been the case for a very long time. Social media has been a tool whereby the government that has been keeping us under surveillance as a nation, unbeknownst to us, gets information that you volunteer to it while they are engaged in studying. You understand, not only is monitoring an unreasonable search for electronic information outside of any warrant or probable cause by the population. The entire country is under surveillance. You are physically under surveillance while subject to what is monitoring. You need to understand that there is a spiritual aspect regarding monitoring. Monitoring is demonic. All right. Meaning, monitoring is that which is occurring by those who are under a specific influence, and it is called demon possession. And that is not some peculiar conspiracy theory. It is that which is proven objectively with evidence that proves that, and that which is also directly used to prosecute a government for your own informational purposes. Again, what you are taking from this is that you need to know that you are under surveillance. The entity has sought to sacrifice me. The entity targeted my life, tried to silence me in order to murder me and kidnap me. And that can go, and I mean that, the entity can engage in kidnapping you, even if not putting you in a ward. But that's all the entity wants to defame you, but not just making you a criminal, but making you one that is specifically. The demons want to falsely depict you as mentally inept, mentally incapable, mentally incapacitated. That's a specific demonic desire. But again, it is not impossible that the entity will settle for a criminal record. Okay. Having you, and this is exactly the P.O.C. also, being falsely accused, being subject to someone bearing false witness. The people of the state are the ones that bear false witness, while you have a whole crime underway in a corrupt courthouse, which is the P.O.C. and accomplishes kidnapping in these facilities where, by the way, they're engaged in monitoring, psychological torture with, by the way, the demon possessed, who are the inmates, who are the deputies. All right. Or, the jailers in a prison situation, the medical workers. This is what San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department engaged in. I documented it while they engaged in multiple acts of kidnapping with the people of the state in conformity to the pattern of conduct and exhibiting demon possession through that demonic environment maintained inside of their facilities. And while they exhibited demon possession through their behavioral pattern, which was fully underway in a secure facility of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. That is Glen Helen Rehabilitation Center, Central Detention Center, West Valley Detention Center, where they're gang stalking. All right. It's the same system where the entity is acting directly through the government and the entity is acting vicariously through the people of the state. That's the same exact system while demons are in jail and while demons are in a ward staying as patients, and they are ceaselessly gang stalking. Fake sun, engineer light, stalker with activity, the same P.O.C. This is what's happening at the apartment complex in Ontario. Right. So I just want to speak to monitoring. It is relevant to what is an unreasonable search. All right. So this is on the physical. This is with regard to that which is written into law. You've got your rights, your constitutional rights to against an unreasonable search and seizure. The entity cannot, without just to put it in layman's terms, simplified terms, they can't, without the adequate facts and information to substantiate what is a search in your phone. They can't just go in your phone, okay, and just look through your stuff. They have to have the adequate legal authority under the state and federal constitutions with regard to what is monitoring, which is a system that's underway inside of this country. Everything that's going on your devices, in your home, at work, it's all under surveillance, and that not only by the government, that by who you are aware of, the people of the state who also know what's going on in your phone. All right. They also know what it is that and who you're talking to and what you're talking about. And this is speaking to, again, what are not marketing calls, random calls from people that call the wrong number, or some computer that's dialing you, that's built into a system, or some just some computer generated on your, no, this is activity creation. It's Title 18 federal stalking methods of surveillance, and it is very calculated. It is, to put in very clear terms, gang stalkers will call you. You don't know their number and you don't have to. Gang stalkers that are driving on Vine Avenue, capable of calling my phone just to create activity creation. And you call them back on if they use a fake number. Anyone can do that. It's the means of the P.O.C. In other words, this is a very detailed, a very elaborate and I would say far-reaching system that is under no circumstances. There is no sense of randomness. There are no accidents. There is no mistakes. There's no malfunctions. With regard, the operation of your device, your internet, Wi-Fi signal, like I've been documenting as of late, the antenna signal inside of the TV that I'm using, which is a communication device connected to the internet, a means of creating activity, that which occurs also, not coincidentally, but in conformity to the pattern of conduct with simultaneity to whatever it is that I do. And then that activity creation, meaning the TV will go off the moment that I start reviewing the Ontario Police on the internet. Okay. And as I document, 6:09 p.m. Ontario Police is the what I'm viewing on my communication device, and I'm citing the law that this is in violation of, as the entity is simultaneously creating activity. The more as I document that, then the TV continuously and repeatedly and more frequently and for a prolonged period. In other words, the more that I document, this is a psychological torture tactic. The demons that are monitoring your mind, what your thoughts, in other words, they're monitoring your responses. And I just want to be clear, the demons, what I'm referencing very, very clearly to those who do not understand, Satan is real. He's a spirit. He uses people, and his spirit occupies human beings who are thus demon possessed, having the uncanny ability to stalk you via audible activity. That's a very specific phrasing of words. What do I mean by that? Stalking with audible activity, like you are stalking someone, following them from place to place. You are stalking them with noise creation as they make any move, as they engage in any new, by new, I mean going from sitting stationary on the couch to all of a sudden standing up. That is followed by some method of noise. That's demonic. It's monitoring conduct. It's also psychological torture while you are subject to that on a ceaseless basis. That is designed, and it is reasonably resulting in what is psychological harms to the overall well-being of an American citizen who is very reasonably traumatized, while a whole population, everywhere that you're going, engages in that, including through the outlandish methods of using helicopter to do so. That is the entity that fully intends to threaten your life, threaten your well-being and your safety, especially where they also have a pattern of conduct of kidnapping you, while also on its face, not only traditional stalking, which again, traditional stalking in that my evidence establishes that the Ontario Police Department follow me from place to place in helicopters, and also that they're engaged in federal group stalking monitoring because the specific environment follows me, which is a scientific impossibility, while those demons are stalking me in that environment, which is group stalking in helicopters. My evidence supports both. And by the way, there is no basis under existing federal law that you cannot prosecute the police departments, that is the state, the city, for stalking you and harassing you, all right, in helicopters, because they're in a helicopter, because they're flying over everyone. They're not flying over you. No, everyone is not going to every place where you're going. The entire apartment complex is not going to my job. The entire apartment complex is not going to the mall when I go after work. The entire apartment complex is not going with me to Chick-fil-A when I go there after I leave the mall, and then going with me to go get my toes done at the nail salon. But the Ontario Police Department did. Okay. And they did so in the specific environment. And that's how you are establishing what is sufficient to prosecute under existing law, criminal stalking. Okay, Penal Code 646, I believe, if I'm quoting it correctly. But nonetheless, this is greater than stalking by the state, and the reason why you're not going to get redress in the courts anyway, because the court is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, and my evidence also shows that. right? The entity is engaged in what is criminal facilitation. So the entity is engaged in what is intellectually unreasonable, and this is what, and how do they do that? They just defame you. Not engaging in actually how the law works, what the law requires, what your documentation can independently establish. And that is because it's intending to fault. That's the pattern of conduct. That's why. But it actually it doesn't legally jive, and it also does not logically. There's a flawed syllogism there. You can establish that the entity is harassing you, following you from place to place, and I literally have that coming from Los Angeles. I was coming from Monrovia. I have a wealth of documentation, but I literally returned to for the first time in, I believe, September of 2024, and I am at the Starbucks at 706 West Holt Boulevard. And the fake sun remains over me. Haven't been to Ontario in years. The entity rising and setting the sun over me at Alvarado Gardens as I documented the whole year. And all of a sudden, there it is over me. And remember, it's not all of a sudden, it's in conformity to a pattern of conduct. A pattern of conduct that you are recognizing through what is not only what the people are doing, but the environment that they're doing it in. All right. That's how you're understanding a pattern of conduct, the malice of an entity, of a society that is, in fact, a bunch of strangers in the physical, demons in the spirit who are targeting you. They know exactly who you are. They know what you're thinking. They know what you're saying. They know how you feel about things. They're also keeping you under surveillance on the internet, and they are seeking to falsely depict you as mentally incapacitated while they are seeking and further into the conspiracy to murder and kidnap you, and doing so necessarily by psychologically torturing you until you are traumatized to an extent that they can establish you killed yourself. If indeed the target individual does actually kill themselves, it remains murder. It remains, in other words, a homicide, the taking of a life that is attributed to the state. Okay. The entity is engaging in, and why is that? Because federal group stalking monitoring is it is a violent crime. It's also sexually violent, and it is that which is reasonably calculated, reasonable to result in the loss of life, just like committing a violent crime such as robbery with a gun, where the police that are bearing weapons and exercising fictitious authority under the law, which is then cooperated and facilitated by the sheriff, cooperated and facilitated by the corrupt courts, that is reasonable to result in the loss of life. Okay. And you are seeing it being parroted to you on the news as some sort of racial injustice, Black Lives Matter, for example, because that's exactly what it would have been if the entity would have accomplished its demonic objective of sacrificing a Black woman by a overzealous police department, and it would have been written off in that's exactly what they want. Race is a distraction from what is a spiritual condition. What is a system of practicing of darkness, witchcraft, of population of the demon possessed. So, and this is the unfortunate reality. The kindergarten teacher, she's a newlywed. Her husband is a doctor. She's pregnant with her. She's got 1.5 kids, in other words, a demon possessed family. So anything that you are imagining in your mind, the celebrities living in Hollywood, P. Diddy is a prime example. He is not alone. The sex rituals, sexual violence is inherent to witchcraft. It is something that is inherent to what the entity relies on. Sexual perversion, sexual activity, also with those that do not consent and cannot consent. Those who are trafficked, those who are under the age of majority. All right. This is what the state of California is practicing while it's engaged in the ritualistic system of federal group stalking monitoring. It is witchcraft. This is a witch coven. This is what is inherent to witchcraft. You also know they're sex offenders. And you've seen the symptoms of this while certain people are, perhaps prosecuted for crimes and you're isolating it in your mind. Well, it's just that person. And yes, under natural law, you have what is a corrupt government that's picking and choosing who's going to be held accountable, while they are in what is an entirely corrupt system. It's entirely corrupt. And so this is where I want to be clear. The so-called horrible criminals that are sticking out amongst what is a state full of criminals who share a condition. They're all demons. And you are also made aware of what they share. They engage in a pattern and practice of sexual violence. Federal group stalking monitoring is an exceedingly violent sex offense. And that unabated program of monitoring is also occurring in a private space, such as a bathroom, all right, when you're physically indisposed. And it's public information. And the demon that I don't know and I don't have to know is hovering, crossing path in helicopter, in commercial airline planes in relevant position, and driving on Vine Avenue, walking in the parking lot, walking in the sidewalk outside of the apartment, walking in and out of the apartment, walking in the apartment upstairs, walking into their apartment in the building directly across, walking on G Street in relevant position. While the teenagers are getting out of school, and they are what is patrolling one person after another in the specific environment. The entity is engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring, which is a sex offense, which is domestic terrorism, in concert and with the those that are under the age of majority. And they are also armed with cell phones engaging in federal stalking. This is the state's comprehensive system of surveillance that is occurring online. And it is also occurring with regard to what is keeping you under surveillance in person, stalking you conspicuously and inconspicuously, which that stalking system is identified in that specific environment. Now, with regard to, I'm going to digress from that. With regard to the surveillance that's online, I want to expose again what is inherent to the pattern of conduct, which I have, again, if you go to my website, this is the P.O.C.wordpress.com. I have proposed a federal group stalking and monitoring statute. It is referred to as systematic infliction of inhumane suffering. It is speaking to every tactic that is employed by a corrupt entity that's engaging in what is very malicious because it's demonic. But there is a federal there is a federal response regarding the ways in which you can prosecute the malicious engagement in what is monitoring an American citizen, which is to stalk. The only way that you can monitor someone is by stalking them. And the entity is doing so conspicuously and inconspicuously in concert with the civilian population. All of that is going against the little guy, an American citizen. This is empowering an American citizen to initiate their own case by documentation, but essentially a civil case that would, again, the federal government has jurisdiction. You're talking about by virtue of recognizing federal group stalking and monitoring. This is not only this is talking about federal question jurisdiction is the means of jurisdiction by the state, but it's domestic terrorism as well. There's more than one basis, but the federal government has jurisdiction, and it's also public corruption. This is another basis of jurisdiction by the feds. So you're talking about enabling and why is this? Why is this necessary? Let me backtrack again. The ordinary target individual will not get justice. They will not get redress amongst the demon-possessed DA who are in a position to kidnap them and falsely depict them. All right. They are in position and poised to use their position to maliciously accomplish a kidnapping and not a criminal prosecution within a legitimate criminal justice system against the target individual. And by the way, where you are exposing federal group stalking and monitoring, unfortunately, this is the reality. You have what is an entirely corrupt system that's not legitimate, whether it's the target individual that's subject to the exercise of fictitious authority or another demon-possessed gang stalker who's being processed through that same corrupt entity's fictitious exercise of authority. All right. But I'm going to leave that alone as well. I'm going to digress from that. But what I have proposed is empowering an American citizen to initiate in a civil manner their own case, and that would be brought against, and I'm going to put it in simple terms, of course, but you're talking about, to put simply, being able to bring your own civil case against the state, where you have independent corroborating documentation, of course, and this would be a means for providing the federal government probable cause to investigate. And I want to be clear, the federal government is already they're already on alert. They're already aware of the fact that this is what the states are capable of doing. California is doing it. Okay, so California is setting the standard, a very low bar, removing confidence. Unfortunately, this is tragic for the republic. This is tragic, but it is removing confidence in the states, in the state government, to be doing the right thing, to be capable of being trusted when, quote unquote, no one is watching. All right, keeping the feds doing their job as the superior branch. All right, keeping watch and making sure, so maybe perhaps a group of bad actors, bad seeds, but you're talking about the state. And where the pattern of conduct is established, it is an irrebuttable presumption of public corruption. That means you do not have any presumption of legitimacy. So what the court has done is up for question. What the sheriff's department has done is up for question. What the police department has done is up for question. What the population has done, it is all suspect. And this is flipping the malice of the system on its head, because the entity is acting as a bully toward that target individual. The police, the sheriff, the court, they are unjustly, tragically given a badge of legitimacy. So what the court says about the target individual, no one is questioning. Oh, they are in jail because of the lawful exercise of discretion by the judge, by the court, by the state that has decreed based on the evidence present, and we're trusting that that is a lawful execution of their duties, of their authorities under the Constitution. That is all brought into question, unfortunately, based on the criminal conduct of the corrupt state of California. This is tragic on a large scale, But the ability to enforce your rights under what remains legitimate, the Constitution of the United States, all right, that is, hope. The ability to have the legitimate involvement of the federal government that is not acting in furtherance of the conspiracy to engage in and facilitate federal group stalking and monitoring. Not that you should be trusting in any man, because that's the greater point here. There is no such thing as a perfect man. All right. Our quote unquote founding fathers of this country, the whole constitutional construct is built on the fallibility of man. All right. It's built on that. But so is scripture, that speaking of, we are sinners, not that we're not born perfect. You're not an inherently good person. I'm sorry to break that to you. We are born sinners, inclined to sin, bent toward that which is wrong, that which is sin, offensive to the true and living God who is holy. All right. You are looking at what is a far, heavily warped, long existing system that is illustrative of that reality. And you just have rampant corruption that has not been stopped. Not one single person, at least, that has survived. Because if there was one person, they're already dead. They've been executed in one way or another. And you were given some narrative about the way that they just died, some heart attack or something like that. But they were killed off if there were any threat to concealing what is a system of organized crime in the state of California. But there is not one person that is seeking to do the right thing. In other words, standing out, which is, again, a threat to your life when you're being targeted. You are an automatic target. All right. When you do not conform to this. And by the way, based on your identity spiritually, those who know Christ, Satan and the demon possessed know exactly who you are. This is how you have, by the way, strangers who are stalking you. This is how you have police departments whom you have no relationship with stalking you, harassing you, confronting you, and you've never been a criminal a day in your life. A day in your life. Okay. Not only that, you've gone out of your way to maintain an immaculate record because of lofty aspirations to be in Congress, to be an ambassador on the world scene, whatever it is. That was my mindset in college and in law school. And so this is what is so, but it's providence. While the entity sought to target me and thought that they would sacrifice me, the Lord God prepared me to endure that spiritual warfare that is manifesting in the natural in the prosecution of a corrupt government that serves Satan. All right. And it is revealing the malice of that corrupt government that's acting maliciously behind the guise of private activity, the people of the state who are vicariously acting in the shoes of the state. And they're doing so in that specific environment. And that facilitating venue is online. And so with regard to venues such as, I'm just going to use YouTube because I'm heavily on YouTube and I'm subject to monitoring on YouTube. And so, but YouTube is not the only one. So in that regard, I'm not going to focus on YouTube as though YouTube is the only site that's engaged in and criminally facilitating this state system that has the criminal purpose of murdering and kidnapping American citizens. Ignorance about what is the state's ultimate purpose behind gang stalking an American citizen is no defense for criminal facilitation in whatever way that it appears. It is an unlawful threat to the life, physical safety, and overall well-being and liberty of the targeted individual. And it is occurring on the venue of the internet. You do not have any constitutional protections online where the state's pattern of conduct is established, which is what's going on. The entity is gang stalking me in person. The same entity is keeping me under surveillance in violation of Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. And not only that, are they engaged in gang stalking physically? You're subject to essentially what is surveillance online, which is gang stalking. So as I select a video, for example, the demons are stalking with audible activity. As I begin discussing what is a hot topic, such as YouTube, and the demons are anticipating what I thought about even before I started recording this podcast. These demons are fearful and they engage in harming another while they are fearful of what it is or whatever threat that you pose. Hence, the entity is amplifying train activity, which is impossible to hear at a great distance. The entity does not have trains in the city of Ontario, and that from the museum to throughout that will be the entire city that is being subject to that unreasonable interference, where they zoning violations inherent to that, while you are hearing the train in your houses throughout the city because the train is in operation. That's unreasonable. That's not the actual case, and that's also demonic. The entity is doing so with an intent to obstruct justice, subjecting you to psychological harm, monitoring you with an intent to obstruct justice. That's the purpose behind stalking with what is under no circumstances naturally happening. You cannot hear the Union Pacific train inside of the apartments at Woodside Senior Apartments. And this is also something that the federal government itself can run a test. You can run it because it's not naturally happening. It is the demonic. And also, I've already proven that where the sun is sitting over the apartment building all day long, that is where the entity is fully capable and is indeed engaging in other demonic methods of targeting, such as that which you can hear. Okay, this is the entity that's engaging in what is psychological torture through the demonic methods, and also through the fact that the entity is doing so through a population and also through the government, such as the fire departments, the ambulance drivers, the EMTs, and the police. Even the sheriff's department, because you have a lot of them that are policing. They have policing contracts. They're doing the same thing in sheriff's county vehicles, crossing path, creating light activity, stalking in the path. They're doing the exact same elements of monitoring. You're identifying functions of the state, instrumentalities of the state, where elements are present. It's demonic activity, accomplishing surveillance in a very specific environment. The formula never changes. The manner in which that formula is accomplished, that is what is inclined to change. That's it. So using your phone on speakerphone versus amplified sound of some demon stomping above you that lives above. It's both methods of audible activity. Both methods are a means of stalking you with audible activity. The speakerphone sounding at the same time you stand up, the speakerphone again sounding at the same time you fall asleep. The entity is monitoring as you go from a conscious to unconscious state. The speakerphone sounding at the same time you move your big toe inside of your shoe. That level of monitoring a person. Also monitoring when your genitalia is exposed in a private space. And that is, again, not just a bathroom, but also your home, your castle, where engineer light is present and where the fake sun is over you. You do not have any privacy. You are under surveillance. And the entity's constructive presence is established by the documentation of that specific environment, where the entity is also engaged in, as I've shown, the hallmark of stalking and helicopters. The entity is doing so with knowledge that you are documenting it. And that is why domestic terrorists like Paul Leon, a fake pastor, a whole demon, who is engaging in what is domestic terrorism by virtue of facilitating it as a corrupt mayor, where domestic terrorism is happening on your watch. You're not ignorant about it, nor shall you remain as one that is at the very least derelict on duty if this demon doesn't want to admit. You don't need to admit anything. You're out of office where domestic terrorism is happening on your watch, period. You're not negotiating with terrorists in the United States. Right? The entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct, and the mayor knows about what the police department is doing, and all these parties would like to feign ignorance, but that's where the documentation showing the P.O.C. serves to prosecute all aspects of that intricate system. Every single last actor who are not ignorant, who are maliciously acting in concert with the intent to obstruct justice while they want to murder and kidnap someone that they would like to falsely depict as mentally incapacitated, and they did it to one who was legally trained in the law, fully capable, as you can see, of articulating my thoughts and my feelings and my experiences. And the entity has, in every regard, engaged in years of the pattern of conduct of facilitating murder and kidnapping by criminally defaming me in the corrupt courts. And everyone engaged in that is subject to prison. I want to be clear. It is not sufficient to lose your job. Understand the objective of federal group stalking and monitoring. It is to murder and kidnap. The entity that engages in this against American citizens who, by the way, are already dead, but against American citizens who are kidnapped right now, it is insufficient to lose your job. Prison, and based under the circumstances, the mental instability exhibited by the ways in which you engage in the P.O.C., can serve to have that criminal facilitator placed in a mental asylum. Okay, mental illness is exposed through what is the malicious conduct of psychopathic behaviors. Okay, just generally speaking, you're talking about a psychopath that's acting with intent, knowledge, desire, gratified, derives pleasure from harming another, engages in more of that harmful behavior. The more that you speak to it, the more that you are terrified by it, the more that you expose it, they engage in more, even if it includes harming themselves or their interests. That's mental illness. 101, by the way. That's speaking to what is also legally going to be recognized as and interpreted as and analyzed as obsession by malicious actors. You're not walking around and exercising any privacy rights on the sidewalk, or you're creating light activity where you are conspicuously and inconspicuously in the path. That is vicariously on behalf of the government that is operating a system of federal group stalking and monitoring. None of that is private conduct. And the entity continuously does so. And that is speaking to what is the ways in which you are systematically prosecuting and punishing in order to disincentivize and deconstruct, that is permanently break down the system, the ability to engage in the system, the ability to engage in the system in any surreptitious manner, meaning the entity may be foolish enough, the states may be foolish enough to engage in it, but it will never be a secret. It is fully capable of being identified and prosecuted. Okay, this is what is the purpose, the goal, the rationale behind systematic infliction of inhumane suffering. And on the venue of the internet, you are subject to monitoring. Monitoring is of a spiritual context, meaning what you're looking at, for example, on YouTube. And you are, for example, I am looking at videos about daisies. I like flowers and roses and purple flowers, lilacs and sunflowers and lavender and essential body, whatever it is that you're looking up. I'm looking at this, and we have been given explanations regarding the things that will generate in the feed, the algorithm, if you will, what generates in the feed, what's going to make a video more inclined to appear, is based on what it is, first of all, that you are looking at, what your internet activity consists of. This is the physical explanation. The reality is that we're all under surveillance, and whether you select, for example, keep my search engine information, quote unquote, private, that's an illusion. You're still subject to what is monitoring, and that which you do not search for example, in the YouTube library of I mean, you can look up anything on YouTube you want to look at, like I was stating, flowers. So you're not looking up, all I do is look up flowers. And for example, like going to a private tab where I don't want it to be a part of my feed. And you go to a private one, if you're familiar with Chrome browser, for example, I'm being very specific because it's relevant to the ways in which your information is accumulated and how you're identifying the fact that you are under surveillance on the internet. And it's not based on what's in what is purportedly an algorithm. You're being physically monitored, which is speaking to spiritually. And it's occurring through your communication devices, meaning, if you are, and like I was stating, say you're going to a private window so that it doesn't keep history of, everything that you search for, because you don't want it to show up in your regular windows where you want it to. I want them to always show me videos about flowers and daisies and sunflowers. I like seeing that type of content. And so I'll keep that in my regular window. But stuff that I'm just looking for right now, like the Ontario Police, I don't want that generating in my feed on YouTube. So I'm going to open up a private tab. Okay. And I'm going to look up the Ontario Police Department on YouTube, where you will find a lot of the evidence from my website, my channel, the P.O.C. You'll find a lot of stuff, even from the Ontario Police Department, which a lot of it can be used as admissions against the entity. Nonetheless, the entity is engaging in what is monitoring on the venue of the internet. You can go to a private window where you're reasonably expecting, based on what's presented to you about your alleged purported privacy, regarding what you're doing on a communication device, and where none of us have forfeited knowingly our constitutional right to privacy. And there's no, and I'm talking about those that are not engaged in any crime. There's no warrant of probable cause for your arrest, and the government, the state, has no right to keep you under surveillance regarding your internet activity, regarding what it is that you're looking at. This is supposedly private conduct, okay? Now, what it is that you are looking at, no matter how holy or no matter how perverted it is nonetheless, it remains private. Okay. So you're talking about freedom of speech issues with regard to getting into the content of the speech. I'm not getting into that right now. You're talking about the fact that it remains private, especially while you're in your home and you are not subject to any lawful means of surveillance. You are indeed under surveillance. And the fact that I'm subject to the P.O.C. is evidence of that for you. You also know that because of the specific environment, which you can compare with what you see me surrounded by, that applies to you. Okay. So the entity, you are also aware of it, as you will, you should be aware of when you are on the internet, and you don't have to go to a private window, but I just want to use that as a specific detail. And, you necessarily have to get it started. So say you look up in a private window where there's no prior history to draw off of, you start the suggestion, if you all call it, of videos that they'll put in your feed, suggesting for you to watch based on the first thing that you put in the search bar. So on YouTube, I'll put a grilled chicken. Okay. And so as I search for grilled chicken, that's the first video that I watch. And then you can reasonably anticipate a grilled chicken and probably, other stuff too, because that's only one subject. Not everything that comes up in your feed is going to be about grilled chicken, but there will be things in your feed generating along that topic, because that is what you have searched for. And once you close that window, that history disappears. This is what we're told. It's not actually, but I'm not going to go into that. That window, that history disappears, okay, because you've selected a private window that you don't want to be a part of your internet history feeding into, your because you don't want, in other words, grilled chicken showing up in your feed on YouTube when all you want to see is videos about the daisies and the essential oils, the lavender oils, and the roses and the lilacs. Okay. So the entity is keeping you under surveillance with regard to the way that you are able to identify the content that is appearing in your feed. And it's nothing that you don't have to understand. Monitoring is spiritual. The demon possessed are monitoring you, and you're being monitored physically, and you're also being monitored with regard to what is spiritual in nature, meaning you don't have to say anything out loud for the entity to know that you get scared when you hear helicopter activity. Okay. And by the way, the ordinary target individual is reasonably very fearful of the police arriving in helicopters, and it's vibrating the apartment, et cetera, et cetera. I've gone through that analysis, but the entity is monitoring. This is demonic. And so it's also happening via communication devices, and it is relevant to what is psychological torture. Okay, and so this demonic system is facilitated, it is enabled, it is underway on the internet. And so when you're looking up grilled chicken, and you get in your YouTube feed videos about chicken, maybe fried chicken and grilled chicken and baked chicken, and a lot of stuff about grilled chicken also, and then the different type of cultures, all type of stuff. And there will also be other stuff that's not necessarily. I'm just getting to the notion that based on your starting something, putting something in the system, that's what the entity is using. Excuse me. I don't want to speak in terms of entity yet. I'm getting to, that's what the website YouTube's algorithm is using in order to generate, okay, based on what we've been told, how we're not under surveillance, and so it's just based on what and that's if you want to share it, if you don't, but the reality is I want to speak to the fact that things such as the ads are a means of creating activity. So while you're watching a video about grilled chicken in your private window, and after you close that, none of that's going to be a part of your regular internet browsing history, and you're watching video about grilled chicken, and say you're sitting up right at your desk, and say you're like me, you're also at the same time painting your nails, and while you're painting your nails, and you're listening, you're looking down at your nails, you're also looking up at the laptop. And I'm just giving you an example. It doesn't have to be this specific, okay, I'm just living my life. I'm watching videos on YouTube. I just happen to be painting my nails while I do it. And with regard to, I'm thinking about my nail color, and then I go to listening to what the video is talking about grilled chicken. And then I rapidly change thought, and I start thinking about how I want to make some ginger tea right now. As I switch thoughts like that, immediately an ad begins. An ad that doesn't have to be any particular subject either. But that's the indicator of what is criminal monitoring. Okay, monitoring a change in your operation, not only physically but also mentally, as you are switching your thought. You could say literally like brainwaves. You start thinking from one thing to another, switching topics, if you will. All right, in your mind, a means of monitoring you, which is also psychological torture. And it's happening on communication devices on the venue of the internet. And it's facilitating, I am subject to federal group stalking and monitoring. The entity is in real time seeking and acting in furtherance of a conspiracy to murder and kidnap me. And this is not the conspiracy theory of someone lacking the evidence to prove that. This is actually what's happening. I'm subject to surveillance in the physical, and this is also surveillance online. And it's also facilitating the pattern of conduct and the ads. I want to be clear, psychological torture is not merely about the elements of monitoring. Psychological torture is about an ongoing program of causing you to feel, respond, think a certain way, traumatizing you. Every time you start thinking about ginger tea, let's say the ad was about polar bears. The moment that you start thinking about ginger tea, and you see an ad with polar bears, and say that it was a particularly ferocious polar bear with blood coming from its, it was attacking an animal, and say, oh my gosh, that is so disgusting, that's so scary, and you respond in a way to it. I'm giving you an example of how psychological torture is operating while you are being monitored. First of all, you're having a change in thought. With simultaneity to your change in thought, immediately an ad comes on, again, it doesn't have to be elements of monitoring, because, for example, I wear headphones. I'm wearing headphones, so it's not creating audible activity with regard to physically monitoring me inside of the apartment for Ontario police who are maintaining the elements of monitoring. Okay, the elements are already always being maintained. All right, but I want to be clear, what you hear in your headphones, everything is actually, they can hear what you're listening to in your headphones. It's not isolated to you. So I just want to be clear, it is satisfying actually elements of monitoring, but I just want to be clear, the purpose of psychological torture is not necessarily to satisfy the elements of monitoring. It's engaging in what is a program whereby every thought that you have, every move that you make, also anything that is particularly, I'll say, interesting, triggering, enraging, infuriating to the demons who are monitoring you. I happen to be infuriating the entity because not only because I am a child of God, all right, I am a disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ. I believe him to be my Lord and Savior, and I confess him before men. They are also hostile to me because I'm documenting them. Okay, so the entity is hostile to being exposed, not only for criminal conduct, not only because I'm naming demons by government positions and agencies and third parties, but because I am identifying the fact that they're demon possessed. All right. You're not just engaged in violating my constitutional rights by keeping me under surveillance. This is demonic on top of that. This is speaking to coloring the nature of the crime. This is speaking to the aspect of domestic terrorism, which it is domestic terrorism by the state that is not only keeping you under surveillance in violation of your constitutional rights, but doing so amongst a population and also doing so through demonic means that are not supposed to be capable of being proven or even articulated in the way in which that I'm doing right now. That is malice. Satan, the demon possessed entity, targets an American citizen in that quote unquote sophisticated, systematic manner. It's really not sophisticated because, like I said, the unemployed demon above, she doesn't have a job. She cannot pay her rent. She's a recipient of rental assistance. And this is not to bash anyone that has insufficient funds to pay your rent. Okay, we are not under any circumstances defined by our external material means. Satan wants you to believe that in this system that Satan runs in this world, wants you to believe that's how you estimate yourself. But I am, however, pointing out the fact that the entity, the city of Ontario, demons such as Paul Leon, the entity is financing domestic terrorism so that perfectly energetic corrupt actors, sex offenders, gang stalkers that cannot pay their rent are sitting at home. She's over 55 years old and has all the energy in the world, does not go to sleep, does not leave the living room, and does not cease to follow me with noise, does not cease to follow me with her person. And I'm referencing the demon inside of apartment number 55, license 5WV 715. This is a state actor living at a facilitating venue. Fake sun, engineered light, stalking by the state, surrounded by the evidence, going to a mental asylum, okay? Continuously exhibits mental instability by putting her on, as you see, once you are exposed, so it's no longer a secret. So now you're gang stalking in plain view of the federal government. So you know you are going to a mental asylum, because I told you before, the federal government is not looking at this as some unsubstantiated conspiracy theory by somebody that's suffering from some mental illness. You are squarely surrounded by evidence, and you place yourself in harm's way, damage your own interests legally. Okay. And also physically, you're going to be placed in confinement. Okay. And they will sacrifice that while they are obsessively gang stalking. This is not just a criminal purpose to engage in conduct that is in violation of the law. This is an obsession by a demon-possessed entity that's not even going to accomplish the sacrifice. Nobody is sacrificing me to Satan. This entity has sacrificed the reputation of legitimacy. Many have sacrificed their own liberty. They've sacrificed their reputation, their careers. Many have sacrificed their citizenship in this country. So et cetera, et cetera. The entity is engaging in this and psychological torture is that which is based on not only what you're physically doing, but what it is that you're thinking. And what is it that I'm thinking about all the time? Documentation. So my documentation is a means of, because it's what I'm thinking, I have to think it in order to document it. So you are literally, as I engage in thinking about what the entity is doing, the entity is engaging in a federal offense. This is the criminalization of psychological torture, where the demons are monitoring an ordinary target individual, not documenting. Your thoughts are under surveillance, okay? This is demonic activity. This is just the reality. Your thoughts are under surveillance. So while you're not documenting, you're sitting around, and this is totally understandable. And you are not a coward. You're not weak. You're not mentally unstable, while you are reasonably fearful for your life and safety, okay? At all, under any circumstances whatsoever. So this is not to diminish what a normal human being, and I'm not trying to say that I'm not normal, but I am speaking for the humanity of the ordinary target individual that doesn't have the right, they have the right, but they don't have the ability, the skill set, they don't have the evidence, they don't have the wherewithal, because what are they doing? What are they even doing? Okay, so you're not aware of the fact, you're not conscious of the fact that literally your thoughts, as you switch thoughts, you're being followed by a change in activity, a change in the environment. That's psychological torture. And as you're unaware of that very precise method, you are aware, however, of things that the entity wants to torture you with. So you were scared of the polar bear. You didn't like that. Okay. You responded to it. You even I'm talking about you. Let me go back to me. I responded by fear. I even smudged my nail polish because it was so hideous. Like, oh my goodness, this bear is atrocious with blood. That's so gross. That's scary. All right. The demons are monitoring you. And, as you are thinking that, whether you say it out loud or not, okay, you can very well not say anything and just skip the ad very promptly. Demons are monitoring your response, and also simultaneously you're under surveillance. I'm just talking about what's going on the internet right now. So that is a means of monitoring you online, and this is something that you are probably not aware of or paying attention to, but it is that which is occurring. It is demonic. It's legally speaking, it's a means of criminal surveillance. And with regard to the fact that the entity is in real time gang stalking me, it's criminal facilitation in the conspiracy to maliciously murder and kidnap an American citizen. I am being gang stalked. That is, while I am under surveillance, the entity is engaged in a conspiracy to murder me. That's why they're stalking me and targeting, harassing, repeatedly kidnapping. And I'm a lawyer, legally trained lawyer, who is fully capable in every regard of not only representing myself, but someone else with paid fees for my license. Okay. Not suffering any mental incapacity whatsoever. Neither have I ever been that person, and never been addicted to drugs. I've never had any unhealthy, like toxic relationships, and I'm not judging anyone, but I don't have issues of promiscuity. I don't have these unhealthy practices in my life, which is what the entity is seeking to criminally defame me with. And doing so, by the way, while a person fully capable of representing myself and articulating my thoughts, my feelings, my experiences, what it is that I do and I don't do in any sort of court hearing where I'm not present, don't know anything about it. That's a criminal act, and it's in conformity to a pattern of conduct. All right. And I want to be clear. It is literally the judge, the attorneys involved, the so-called parties in the courtroom, even the gang stalking demons in the gallery. They may as well write out an admission to the federal government, because it is the prosecution for federal group stalking and monitoring, criminal facilitation for kidnapping via criminal defamation. That's literally what it is. It's not a coincidence while the target individual is subject to this pattern of conduct. So, with regard to psychological torture that's underway on the internet, it's happening while I am subject to this pattern of conduct, because you are subject to that as well. You just haven't noticed it. The government might not be trying to kill you, however, in real time. Okay. But aware of everything that you're doing. Your thoughts are being monitored. Your activity on the internet is being monitored. What you're physically doing, the sites you're looking at, who you're talking to, everything on your phone you download. If you think that you have secrets, not only does Christ Jesus see you, he loves you. It's not to scare you. He loves you. He died for your sins. He rose from the grave. He is alive and well, seated on the throne. And he is waiting, if you do not know him as your Lord and Savior, to forgive you for your sins. The Bible says that he is faithful and just. And if you, paraphrasing, and if you confess your sins, he will forgive you. That's why he died for us. He sacrificed himself. He's a holy God. He is not dead. And he is the true and living God, the only one. And you're talking about the entity that's engaging in a pattern of conduct of a spiritual nature. You're just not paying attention to that, but that's demonic. And you just may not be aware of the fact that you're being monitored, but you just are not you're right. And right now, let me make something else clear. The fact that it's happening to me and we are both in the same country, this is a threat to you, whoever you are. And again, that is not to speak and spread fear. This is recognizing if it's happening to me, it can happen to you. And that's just the facts. All right. Now, becoming aware of what's going on online, it's just a level of consciousness. I do not encourage you, nor is the Lord saying that you need to sit up and be conscious of your thoughts. What am I thinking? When does the ad come on? That's not what this is calling for. This is an illustration regarding psychological torture tactics, regarding as I am subject to that P.O.C. It is psychological torture while you're being monitored on the internet, and you are. We all are. When you're engaging in something like I described, a change in thought. I go from thinking about my nail color to the grilled chicken to immediately changing my mind and thinking about a different subject. And I've never said anything out loud. Immediately an ad comes on with simultaneity to that change in thought. That's monitoring. All right. Monitoring is also where you are viewing that video on YouTube regarding grilled chicken, and the police in your city, the county sheriff's department, the courts, the government, the population around you, what you're doing online is public information. This is just the reality. And this is also that which you can confirm yourself, because you will see a fake sun over you. You will see a fake sun setting. You will see a fake sun rising wherever you're at, or whatever aspect of that environment that you're exposed to. Because where I have evidence that I have published to the world, a sunrise and a sunset at one location, you could never have the sun at any time of day over you. Understand what that evidence is revealing and the implications nationwide. All right, so the monitoring conduct is something that is happening via communication devices, and you are subject to it. Monitoring is also relevant with regard to the content of, for example, the ads that appear in YouTube. You are, I don't want to get too specific. I'm just going to, generally speaking, because I'll be trying to think of overthinking an example. The previous ad is one regarding a polar bear that engaged in, perhaps attacking prey or something, because you're seeing fangs, you're seeing blood, and it's freaking you out kind of. You don't say anything, but you just hurry up and skip that ad. You don't like that. Your reaction is being monitored, and this is demonic. It's demonic. The timing that the ad occurs, it creates an abrupt change in activity, whether you're wearing headphones or not. If you're not wearing headphones, it is creating light activity as it's switching screens. This is visual activity. It's also audible activity. You are always remaining surrounded physically in your path. That's what group stalking is. This is what is surveillance. With regard to the monitoring, you have an enemy of your soul who hates you. He wants you to remain ignorant of his reality, of his methods, and whom he uses. And that is relevant to the way in which monitoring you is also occurring. And so I'm painting my nails. I'm watching the video about grilled chicken because I'm thinking about cooking that later when my nails dry. And after the ad, that, kind of low-key freaks me out a little bit. And I skip it and I resume viewing the video about grilled chicken and the recipe that I'm looking at, and I resume painting my nails, and I'm just staring at the video, and I'm just thinking about the content itself. I've already finished painting my nails. Just giving you just an example. I'm finished painting my nails. I'm just sitting there in front of the fan, and my nails are drying, and I'm focused on the video about the grilled chicken recipe, and I'm thinking about the YouTube video, what the cook is saying, what they're suggesting about the meal and preparation and whatnot. And then for example, I am sitting with both of my legs beside themselves, and I immediately then change position and I cross my legs after sitting for the stationary for this amount of time. At the moment that I change that position, my chair moves a little bit, I cross my legs, an ad comes on. Again, this is a means of monitoring you while you understand the legal context. I'm watching YouTube of this grilled chicken inside of my home, and I'm on the venue of the internet. And this is achieving the elements of monitoring, and it's also monitoring with regard to psychological torture as you physically move and as you engage in things such that you're not paying attention to, like changing your thoughts or even thinking about a particular subject. As you begin, that's another example, as you begin thinking about things such as, man, me and Sally Mae, we really got into like kind of a disagreement. And, she's really actually starting to get on my nerves. I don't know if I'm even going to keep talking to her. I don't know, maybe I'll pray about it. But for now, I think I'm just going to, just let things air off for a second or two. And I'm thinking about this while the video is playing in front of my mind. And then as I begin thinking about, again, rapidly changing thoughts, let's say I think about something like, oh yeah, I need to publish that video about Mike Lorenz of the Ontario Police, who I saw gang stalking me at the, and this is just an example. I have not physically No, excuse me, I take that back. I have not been aware of Mike Lorenz being in my presence. That is not to say, and it does not mean that Mike Lorenz has not been physically in my presence gang stalking me personally. He is gang stalking as the chief of police of the Ontario Police Department that uses helicopters to engage in psychological torture tactics and engaging in the elements of monitoring criminal conduct, conspicuous stalking in the specific environment using the spectacular method of helicopters designed to threaten your life, your safety, your physical well-being, and your liberty, since the Ontario Police Department has engaged in a pattern of kidnapping. Okay? But just for hypothetical purposes. I began thinking about Mike Lorenz, a documented domestic terrorist leader, and the fact that, oh yeah, I need to publish my pictures of Mike Lorenz gang stalking me at the Stater Brothers because I got his license plate and I saw his wife and I got his children to whom he is a threat. Him and his wife are gang stalkers, and they are both a threat to those minor children while they are in the custody of psychopaths who are gang stalking, witchcraft practicing demons. All right. And this is just based on the P.O.C. You know a lot by what they do. And these are all implications based on the pattern of conduct and the demonic nature of that pattern of conduct. Now, this is what I immediately start thinking. And what follows immediately as I began thinking about these unpleasant descriptions of Mike Lorenz, and I am being monitored with regard to my thoughts. Immediately, an ad arrives as I literally state he is a threat. Okay, let's say the moment I get to the word threat, immediately an ad arrives, again, pops up, interferes, interrupts the video, and it's a video game or a scary movie, and it's a violent one, somebody that's holding a machine gun and is shooting a bunch of people, murdering them. All right. And it's a violent video game, or it's a violent action-packed movie, and somebody's on the screen going around shooting people dead. And this is occurring with simultaneity to my thoughts that are not complimentary about a documented gang stalker. And my thoughts are subject to what is monitoring by, this is demonic. And even the content of the ad that's occurring with simultaneity to those unpleasant thoughts is within a pattern of conduct. And I just want to be clear, upon the federal government's recognition, there are ways to make such conduct actionable, especially where the entity is gang stalking. And that's what the state of California is doing. The entity is, and it's also occurring on the facilitating venue of the internet. Literally YouTube itself, who is not only headquartered in California, where there would never be any sun over them. I believe Google is in San Bruno. But that's not the case, because you will see a fake sun over their headquarters while I'm showing you what remains stationary over me. Google is literally a third-party facilitating venue, and so is their internet websites, including YouTube. Okay. And that which is communicating a threat, and it is reasonably communicating a threat, it is not protected speech. It's not random. It's not private speech of Google or YouTube. It's not a random advertisement to which no enforceable rights can be attached. It is within a pattern of conduct of what is psychological torture and criminal monitoring, accomplishing what is surveillance. I'm on a communication device. It's relevant to Title 18, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2, the pattern of conduct that I've already established. And it's also on the venue of the internet, where the people of the state and the state itself are not only gang stalking me physically while I'm in my home, on my laptop, drying my nails, and then thinking unpleasant thoughts about this gang stalking chief of police. All right. And just giving an analytical framework of any demon possessed gang stalker. He happens to be a chief of police who's going to be handled accordingly under federal law. Okay. So, but while I think, and the demons know what you're thinking about, you're being monitored, and it's psychological torture, and it's also a threat. It's a threat. And your ability to recognize that is something that also serves to incriminate the state, because they're monitoring documentation. And I'm talking about myself. The entity not only is engaged in criminal surveillance under Title 18, but also they're engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, which is, again, obsessive stalking, which is maintaining these criminal elements, monitoring its demonic activity. It's the malicious guise under which the people of the state and the state have been engaging in and exhibiting malice, a malice of psychopaths who are targeting someone whom they presuppose cannot prove that you're stalking them while you stand right in front of their face. And what's the logic behind that? How am I stalking you and I'm standing right in front of you? How am I stalking you and I'm not talking to you? How am I stalking to you and I don't even know your name, targeted individual? This is all of the malicious rationales behind the entity that is conspicuously and inconspicuously engaged in the pattern of conduct in the specific environment. They are stalking in all of the aforesaid examples based on the fake sun that remains over you as you walk toward that police officer that's standing in the parking lot outside of your home. And that fake sun moves as you move, and they stand in your face, communicating a threat that you are perceiving, but you lack the evidence to prove it. That's psychological torture as well. Now, they're monitoring the documentation. And while I'm inside of my home on YouTube, on the internet, layers of criminal conduct as I'm describing it, and I go into thoughts about the fact that, I need to make sure that I upload that evidence. Excuse me, not in the parking lot at home. I was at the parking lot and the grocery store. That's where I ran into Mike Lorenz, hypothetically speaking. I ran into Mike Lorenz and his wife, assuming that assuming all of that he has a wife and that he has kids. Okay, I'm making that up. So that he's with his wife and his kids, and I'm going through these thoughts in my mind, and immediately a violent ad comes on depicting somebody going through with shotguns, and they're killing everybody in their path. This is occurring while I'm thinking these unpleasant thoughts about the chief of police, who is, by the way, a corrupt department that just so happens to be engaged in gang stalking. The same thing with regard to a violent ad seeking to, let's say, and remember, I'm on a private browser. So just keep that in mind, because any kind of ad can appear, but your understanding, actually, they're not random. It's very specific. It is based on what it is you may or may not be doing, thinking about, exposing, like I am documenting. As you recall or think about documentation regarding the people of the state, like I am the people of the state inside of Unit 55. And I am recalling how pathetic it is to be at that big age and so advanced in life, and resorting to not only being unemployed, but also your whole life. You're not even sitting in your own living room, living your own life. You're stalking someone else while you're in your living room, and you're doing it to a woman that is not interested, and another woman monitoring her genitalia. Like, there are multiple layers of weird there, but it's beyond weird. It's actionable. It's sexual violence. It's federal group stalking and monitoring. It's on behalf of the state. As you recall this, as you think about such things, the entity engages in the same pattern. And not only is the entity engaging in facilitating what is monitoring that you're subject to. I'm just giving you examples of how that appears. You are subject to what is monitoring, while the same type of thing would happen. An ad will come on talking about what is paranoia, or something depicting your need for medication, or something that would be, and this is, again, not hypersensitivity, because that's what people are immediately, you're talking about hypersensitivity. That is unreasonable in the specific environment within the pattern of conduct of not only criminal surveillance that's happening in your path, That is, i.e., gang stalking, and also that which is occurring on the venue of the internet. And the pattern of conduct that is occurring as you're documenting it online, and also as it increases in its occurrence, as it increases, for example, in its prolonged occurrence, it's rising in volume, it's more elaborate as it's executed. You're stomping, and then you're going to like sound like you're throwing bowling balls, to sound like you're just tossing your body around. It's getting more and more outrageous. This is, first of all, a threat. Okay. Remember, it's always audible activity in furtherance of a conspiracy to murder and kidnap. And it's also pursuant to what is psychological torture. That is occurring while you have such unpleasant thoughts about a gang stalker living above you. And you're recalling, oh yeah, I need to document this unemployed demon, and I'm going to put that in the Google Drive. And as I think about that immediately, an ad begin. Oh, how about this? The moment that I'm multitasking, I'll open up another tab. The moment that I select another tab and open that, that's activity on a communication device with simultaneity to that. This is another example. An ad immediately comes on. You're being monitored. That's Title 18 surveillance on the internet via communication devices. It's also monitoring you, your thoughts, your actions, and the entity will, with simultaneity to your operation of a communication device, an ad abruptly appears, and the substance of that ad, also relevant to psychological torture, is content speaking to you're a woman, so, and it doesn't have to be a woman, but I'm just going to speak to what the entity is actually doing and what you are reasonably found to be engaged in, where the pattern of conduct is underway. And that is seeking to falsely depict, even while it is just you looking at the ad and the entity is pushing a false narrative on you, and you're given a subliminal message. Okay, so let's take me out of it. You, who are the entity's not, to your knowledge, trying to kill you. Okay, evidenced by stalking you every day, harassing you, trying to kidnap you, putting charges of crimes you never committed by the police, and then you're going from what is a false charge, such as you were walking and interfering with my investigation when there's nobody there. They weren't investigating anything. Nobody was there. They were standing on the sidewalk, and you are standing on public property, the sidewalk, and you're attacked and arrested for example, obstruction of an arrest. The entity goes from that to what is being placed in a ward once you get to the sheriff's department, where they keep you in the ward, for example, until you agree to sign a citation. If you know anything about your rights, you will not sign that citation. Understand that it is a risk. I don't encourage people to do what it is that I've done in order to document the state, but you don't sign that citation and you remain kidnapped. And because I know my rights, and I know even if you keep me, you can only keep me for so long before I get an arraignment. And who is going to arraign me under these facts, especially with a public defender? This is how you're getting to the different levels of the malice of the state. Okay, a public defender is not asking any questions. All right, on its face, sorely lacking facts, suggesting that you should take probation, right? Until you get to trial. Okay, I've gone through all of that before. My documentation is online, but this is how you are processed for what is when you're being targeted by the state, and defamation, even by false criminal charges. And they always find a way to put you for an obstruction of arrest charge, where they're gang stalking you, to put you in the ward for that. And that's a profound. I mean, you're leaping heaps and bounds to get from that to that. But this is the P.O.C. All right. Anyway, it doesn't matter what the illegal arrest is about. The entity puts you in the ward for it. All right. This is when you you say you didn't talk to anybody because they're supposed to classify you. And I am not a criminal. I am not well acquainted with the system because I've ever broken the law. I am aware of this corrupt system for documentation purposes in order to prosecute it because I was targeted. Okay. And so while the entity violated my rights, I become more and more informed about what proper procedure is. And it is not an accident or an oversight or negligent where the entity is gang stalking you. They are acting outside of the bounds of the law. They are overreaching their rights. They're violating time restraints and doing things such as, instead of putting you in general population, putting you in the ward because they are engaged in a pattern of conduct. It is malicious. You are being targeted while you're subject to that means of the system operating over you. So While you're falsely, that is kidnapped for obstruction of arrest, the entity puts you in the ward and you sit there, and you could be subject to an arraignment. You could be subject to things such as something as absurd as probation, et cetera, et cetera. I have documented the depths of the kidnapping efforts that the state is engaged in, so I'm going to digress there. However, this is how that pattern of conduct works. So with regard to psychological torture tactics, and you select a new tab with simultaneity to that operation on a communication device, an ad pops up, and the substance of that ad, let's take me out of it, somebody that's not being kidnapped and not being falsely accused and then being placed in a ward and being kept and being put on probation, when they're targeting you the whole time. All right, which is a matter of evidence. I'm not just saying I'm being targeted. I'm not saying that there are people out here that are not being targeted. I know that you are, but not everyone has evidence to prove it. We remain under what is a system that is governed by laws. Even as the government violates those laws, you have to have evidence to prove things in a court. Okay. So the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct. And while that ad pops up, you, who, to your knowledge, the entity is not engaged in any obvious means of targeting you. And the more that you are aware of it, by the way, the more obvious that conduct becomes. As I become aware that the entity is monitoring, everywhere I go, the police are there. They may not be talking to me, but they're always there. They're always there, talking to somebody else, talking to nobody, just sitting in their car, arresting someone, just talking to somebody, just, investigating with their notepad and their pen out, playing with their dog. Okay. But they're always there. That's conspicuous stalking, and it's happening in the specific environment. That's also psychological torture. Now, the more you become aware of that, the more the entity engages in things that are directly threatening you, which is stalking in helicopters, for example, flying over your head in circles or flying in front of your apartment in circles for 45 minutes, like the Los Angeles Police Department did, flying in circles or flying over my head at every location, like the Ontario Police Department have done. And even here at this venue, which is an unlawful threat. We are not in a third world country, and I literally have hundreds of video evidence as though we are in some third world country, and I have every reasonable basis to fear for my life, while the entity is stalking in helicopters and flying directly over my head and doing so. All right. While they're aware of the fact that I'm documenting that. But for documentation, but for awareness, and the demon possessed know what you're thinking while you're being monitored. You're less of a threat to exposure where you're not aware of it. So you may not be subject to targeting with helicopters and you seeing police everywhere. That does not mean that they're not there. By the way, the state is there. Where the people of the state are there, that's vicarious presence in the specific environment on behalf of the state. All right. Nonetheless, let's just take me out of it. The spectacular, ridiculous, obvious gang stalking, police firing ambulance, helicopters, planes, kidnapping, criminal defamation, theft of property, et cetera, et cetera. The entity is engaging in just using an ad, which your mind's not even going to go there. I'm just bringing you a level of awareness. The simultaneity of your operation of a communication device, immediately an ad is interfering. This is the elements of monitoring. It is achieving the criminal elements of monitoring of surveillance, physical surveillance, but also online. In violation of Title 18. This is surveillance on communication devices, on the venue of the internet, on a website that is a facilitating venue. And this is taking these social media platforms out of their protected status of being a private actor. No, they're not. Where the government's engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, and where you and the rest of the world will not deny, nor can you reasonably deny that we are under surveillance. There goes your illusion of privacy conduct. It's not a random ad. It's not private conduct, and it is not hypersensitivity. While that monitoring behavior results in what is an ad speaking to, for example, mental incapacity, somebody that is, in need of therapy. I'm really, really suffering, hallucinating, and feeling like everyone is just out to get me. And I am not going to hide from my fears anymore. I'm going to go get therapy. I'm going to empower myself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a means of psychological torture. It is in conformity to the pattern of conduct, by the way, while the entity is monitoring you and making subliminal messages regarding mental capacity. That's what that is. And that's how that will be analyzed as well, especially where the entity is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring on the venue of the internet. Even if you are unaware of it, you are being monitored. And these are examples regarding how that appears. Okay, so with regard to whatever it is that you look at, your kids look at on the internet, whether you are in a private browser or not, you're subject to surveillance, period. And monitoring, you can, an ads campaign is one means whereby you're able to become aware of it. In addition to that, even and as I expose Satan's secrets, you're talking about what is, okay, doing variations of the same thing. You are being monitored, and Satan is not going to back down from still monitoring. Okay, you're monitoring, and Satan is going to continue monitoring. And who am I? When I'm speaking of Satan, I mean the demon possessed. You're being told about an algorithm, but it has nothing to do with an algorithm regarding the timing with which activity is abruptly changing, regarding the content that you're viewing on the internet, regarding even the content of those means of interfering with the content that you're looking at. It can also occur through the means of just interfering with your internet connection, not necessarily an ad, just interfering with your Wi-Fi or your Ethernet. I mean, that's kind of old school now. I don't know if that's obsolete yet, but the internet connection. Okay, so no, Ethernet is still around. At least I had it at my last job. Sorry. Okay, digressing. Anyway, the internet connection, that's also a means of creating activity. That's the abrupt ceasing of, you're not going to hear the audio anymore, or the screen will go black. It will just pause with simultaneity to your selecting another tab. That's a means of monitoring, even in the absence. Going from viewing the video to the abrupt absence of activity is activity creation. Okay, the screen showing the content that you're looking at to the screen going black, and your inability to open up another tab, activity creation, monitoring, psychological torture tactic, right? And then understand the content of the ads regarding the fact that you are under surveillance and what's going on in your life is not private. If you are perhaps suffering with depression, say you don't have nice thoughts about yourself, which, the devil is a lie. You should not entertain that. I don't care what your circumstances are, or what you look like, or what you think you look like, or what people tell you look like, or whatever lies are being parroted to you that would have you to do anything but love yourself, how you are, the way that God made you, which is perfect in his sight. It is. How are you going to tell the artist himself how he's supposed to make? You're the creation, you're the work of art, so it is a smack in God's face. The one who loves you, died for you, rose from the dead in order that we would have new life in him. And I want to be clear, protection from what is the condition of those that are in the entire state of California. And I said exactly what I'm about to say. The entire state, the entire population in the state of California is demon possessed. And this is not I Am Legend. This is not some horror flick. It's real life. And also my evidence literally proves it. This is not some religious agenda. I'm not religious. And by the way, Christ Jesus is the least religious person. Okay. But I am not religious under any circumstances. This is evidence. I'm prosecuting, and the evidence is establishing, showing, proving an environment that is scientifically impossible to naturally occur. This is relevant. Common sense and logic is not left outside of the doors of the court. Now, where you have this environment, and where you have the behavioral pattern, where you have the operation of the internet acting in conformity to a pattern of conduct, you have what is an ongoing common scheme of things. It's not a coincidence. It's literally clinically referred to as a pattern. And it's serving an overarching purpose. And it's unlawful while in the United States, and we still have a constitution that has not to date been ripped up and overridden, all right, by some tyrant. That hasn't happened yet. Okay, so to date, the Constitution remains relevant, and it becomes the protective document whereby the government doesn't have the lawful right to do what is keep us under surveillance. And it is demonic, the system of surveillance, and it is also demonic while the population itself, the government and the civilians that fill the state of California. Okay, I'm not going to exceed the parameters of what my evidence proves as a matter of a prosecution. But however, the evidence is speaking to that which exceeds the territorial jurisdiction of California, the nature of the evidence. And I've also gone outside of the bounds of the state of California to Nevada. By the way, I haven't lived in California my whole life. I did my first year of law school in Naples, Florida, and it was sunny every day. The sun was over me. I did not recognize it as a pattern of conduct. I took bliss. I enjoyed. I loved the sunny day, and it would only rain for about 6 minutes, and it still stayed hot. Then the rain would rapidly end, and it stayed sunny every day. Ignorance is bliss in many ways. The evidence of the Miami-Dade Police Department, September 2024. The arrest of the football player in Miami, Florida. And you're looking at the light source because that will never be the sun while it is stationary. In September of 2024, I was at the Holiday Inn in what would be Hesperia, California. And I also came here to Woodside Senior Apartments, where you're talking about what's never going to be the natural environment at Holiday Inn in Hesperia and Woodside or Woodside Senior Apartments, and there is no possible way that the sun is stationary over me at Holiday Inn, which my evidence establishes, never moving, never migrating from being in alignment to me from rise until set, doing the same thing at Woodside Senior Apartments from rise until set, and then at some point being over the football player whose name I'm not going to include. But if you're familiar with my evidence, I use that example so many times regarding what the specific environment looks like, and I will refrain from legally analyzing what the specific environment provides probable cause to the federal government for. Okay, upon and that's based on the specific environment. It is relevant to a criminal pattern of conduct that is maliciously underway. It is demonic. And in a demonic environment, a pattern of conduct that is entirely malicious, exposing public corruption, that is underway by those who are monitoring, and only demons that need vessels, that are people who are demon possessed, are monitoring people. Not only that, I have shown that in what is I did go to Northern California and Oakland. I went to Oakland, and I went to Speaker Company's corporate office where, that whole body of evidence is serving for a massive prosecution as well. But my documentation, which I will upload it. It's in 2020. Where again, the entity had not resumed gang stalking me in a perceptible manner in helicopter until February 2024. And that's exactly when I resumed documentation. But I have images of what is a fake sun while I'm on a Southwest Airlines plane. And you're looking at the reflection of the sun while we're flying. The fake sun is hovering over the roof of the Woodside Senior Apartments, ladies and gentlemen. How is the sun going to be visible from my window through the plane of which would be analogous to a car? So say the passenger side of the vehicle. If you're in California, the United States, we drive on what would be the left side, and the passenger side is the right side. So I'm on the right side of the plane, analogous to a passenger side of the plane, and I'm looking out the window, and I have images of the fake sun while I'm on Southwest Airlines. By the way, a very heavily documented gang stalker. That's a threat to my life also, but nonetheless, it's a specific environment. I did fly to Speaker Companies, and I believe it's Palo Alto. And I did fly to Oakland, where Eric Corey Spencer, this is a demon-possessed gang stalker who I happen to be blood related to, fully engaged in the pattern of conduct, repeatedly kidnapping with the state, criminal defamation, criminal summoning, in conformity to the P.O.C. All right. In the entity maintaining that specific environment. Now, I captured my presence in other locations in the state in 2023. And I only mention that to state majority, the large chunk of my evidence is in Southern California. But I want to be clear, you do not, nor can any human being feasibly capture an entire population engaged in what is gang stalking through that whole state. Neither is that required to establish the pattern of conduct. The pattern of conduct is so unique and exclusive regarding what the entity is using. First of all, the engineered light, and also the specific environment that includes the fake sun. That is in and of itself establishing the pattern of conduct, because the sun, why? The sun is, as I am showing it, remaining over me, cannot possibly ever be in Palo Alto, outside of the passenger window of the Southwest Airlines plane in 2023 when I'm flying to Northern California. There would never be a sunny day at Eric Corey Spencer's town, home, shack, whatever he lives in, however you describe that, his apartment. And there would never be, and it was sunny when we went to the mall in Oakland. They were monitoring me in Oakland, California. That is speaking to the police department, the county sheriff's department. That's speaking to a statewide system, which, by the way, absent my evidence, you know that, because the entity is gang stalking through the state. I've established, my evidence will also show that I focused on the government directly. The government was the one that kept giving me evidence of stalking me from place to place in plane and helicopter, fire, police, and ambulance. And I also was unequivocal and unambiguous that at that point where it was sufficient beyond, I understand the standard, and with regard to the ability, the feasibility to prosecute a state for domestic terrorism and gang stalking. You're talking about years of evidence establishing that, which takes a tremendous amount of time period. All right. But doing that and going from understanding it's the state's pattern of conduct. And I was very unequivocal and unambiguous in stating, I'm going to now focus on the people of the state who are in the shoes of the state. They're in the same exact specific environment where there would never be any sun. That means no sunlight from hovering over the roof at Woodside Senior Apartments to make it a sunny day at Eric Corey Spencer's apartment in Oakland, California, or over Berkeley, or over Uber and Lyft headquarters in San Francisco, or over what is San Luis Obispo, or over Camarillo. This is, again, going through naming different places, but Northern California, Southern California, this is establishing, while I remain chiefly in Southern California, what is a pattern of conduct based on the nature, the substance of the evidence, where you are able to see for yourself what is not only speaking to what's beyond natural to even be possible to occur, because based on that, you're looking at the sun over look at somebody's YouTube video that they published living in some city in, I'm trying to think of a ranch. I can't think of a random city in Northern California right now, but let's just keep San Francisco, California. And there is no point. Oh, you can look at a video that they publish online, and they're in San Francisco, California. You are necessarily admitting, because there is no reasonable contention that that's the same sun that's hovering over apartment number 51 in alignment to me. So that would be apartment number 42, directly over hovering over the roof. It's not even in the sky. It's hovering above the roof. Very, very, very particular and specific. And it remains for the duration of the day. That's never in any other location in the sky, let alone covering any area for there to be any sunlight in San Francisco, California. But that's not what you're going to see when you see some random YouTuber that doesn't know that they're helping to establish what is a demonic environment that surrounds all of us, whereby we are subject to surveillance, not only physically, but also online. And it is demonic. It's demonic in nature. And those that are engaging in that pattern of conduct in that demonic environment are demons. And they do not take very kindly to being identified. They don't like being made out. And they are engaged in what is something that is not supposed to be capable of being identified. Okay? But this is just not the case. Okay, you can clearly identify a light source, and that's a necessary emission. Then there must be more than one sun, because what's sitting over Woodside's in your apartment is this apartment building over me, which is why you document in order to prove the impossible, where the entity would like to lock you up like you are mentally unstable, absent the evidence to prove it, saying things out loud like a fake sun. I understand that, but the target individual is not responsible for, nor is it any reflection on them, while demon possessed psychopaths, violent sex offender with a murderous appetite, deriving pleasure and gratification from causing others to suffer, while they exhibit mental instability of a psychopathic level, gang stalking in an entirely cartoon environment. That's speaking and reflecting upon that entity's mental instability, not the targeted individual. And because the ordinary target individual lacks the evidence, that also is not legally sufficient to establish mental illness. However, I understand how the entity that's exercising fictitious authority accomplishes kidnapping, but it does not, in fact, or under the law, establish mental illness. The entity is under all circumstances engaged in criminal defamation. So I just want to speak to the entire state of California based on that pattern of conduct, which you can witness based on the specific environment. This state that happens to be burning in flames right now, is full of the demon possessed. All right. And so I want to be clear. You are subject to surveillance in the United States. That's just and that's been the case for a very long time. The social media phenomenon was a part of literally your participation in providing Satan is studying you. What you like, what you're into, what you tell the public, and what you keep to yourself because you think you have privacy. That's also a means of studying you. Studying what you're inclined to engage in front of other people versus studying everything about you. And that is that's not for a good purpose. And this demonic system that sought to exist outside of your knowledge is something that's been giving you subliminal messages that you're not paying attention to, but that doesn't mean that those subliminal messages are not having an effect on you and your mind, your outlook, the way that you live, the way that you think you should live, and the people that you hang around, the type of lifestyle that you seek, especially those that are not walking in a real relationship. And by real relationship, I mean you are not steadfast, which is protection, literally by the Holy Spirit, and Satan is becoming so desperate. You have what is federal group stalking and monitoring. This is the systematic murdering of American citizens who are demon possessed. You do not have a population of the demon possessed in you. And I mean every news anchor. I mean every celebrity. I mean every director. I mean every politician. You can name, I said exactly what I said. Every single last one of them are demon possessed. And this is massive public corruption. And this is judgment based on the criminalization of a demonic system by those oppressed with demon possession that fill the state of California. And the entity has been targeting me since I was a child and has been studying me. And the point at which I became aware of it, the more outrageous the stalking methods and the psychological torture tactics became. While a very cruel and inhumane population just looks to the left and the right like nothing's happening, much like what you saw on the video while the Ontario police are pacing in the sky space. They're monitoring me right in my face. I want to be clear. This is the same population whose properties are on fire in other areas in this state right now, while they practice cold-blooded ritualistic targeting of innocent American citizens, not rejoicing in the loss and suffering of another. But I want you to keep a sober perspective regarding what the entire state of California is engaged in and how they are treating a person like myself. All right. So I just want to leave that. I wanted to make sure that I put it out there that if you are not aware, you do not have actual privacy. We are under surveillance right now. It is absolutely unlawful. It is not only physical with regard to physical presence around you. It's literally referred to as gang stalking. But that's just in other words, you're not ever in a position where you're not being under surveillance. Like you don't have privacy. You're not in some area where nobody knows where you're at. And what are the implications when you're looking at news headlines and you're talking about a missing person in a society and in the state of California where they are engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring? That is not a genuine missing persons case. Okay. The entity that is gang stalking me is engaged in what is sacrificing people, murdering them, and the malice of that system. You're witnessing my family excuse me, correction. You're witnessing blood relatives who are engaged in the malicious system of targeting me. And were I to come up, quote unquote, missing, these same blood relatives are in a position poised to falsely depict their attitude toward my quote unquote missing status, crying, expressing their great, tremendous love, how they're pleading for information to the corrupt police departments who are not genuinely looking for me. They know exactly where I'm at. They know exactly what happened to me. They have everything to do with it. And it is put on the news, the gang stalking news anchors, as what is a missing persons case. This is the great heights of malice. There are many, I will also say this, that are of this condition of demon possession and they don't know it. That's not to say that they don't know that they're harassing somebody by stalking them, stomping in your apartment. This demon knows exactly what she's doing, that she's focused on me. She knows that I'm documenting her. But until I spoke it, the fact that she's demon possessed, she may or may not have actually known that. Okay. This is speaking to what is a need for repentance. And what has happened in California is happening across the nation. What you also need to know is that you're being kept under surveillance now. You don't have privacy. Everything you put on the internet, you're just adding on to what is already known about you by the government. And that is for a nefarious purpose. And times are going to become increasingly challenging, and less and less are we going to find ourselves in predicaments and situations and circumstances where we can cling to the Constitution. And that's also deliberate. And I, with all due respect, I don't mean, but I'm just going to put it in frank terms, the systematic dumbing down of the general public in order to keep you on the internet and out of a book. Not to say that you can't read a book on Kindle, okay? But just with regard to keeping you as ignorant, keeping you as disinterested in things such as your constitutional rights, keeping you as far away from these sort of things and caught up in the latest Fendi bag and what's going on in the housewives and, whatever surgery you're going to get that girl or that man that you need to, for whatever, it just all the superficiality. In other words, a lot of the nonsense, I'm going to be frank, that's going on out here. A lot of, and I want to be clear because people think that they're distinct because, well, I have a dignified and successful career in law and in medicine. And I am a career college student. I just study as I feel led to, whatever it is, that which is ultimately coming to of no substance. I will say, actually, there is a distinction. Those that study constitutional law, you happen to actually know the law. So you're not ignorant in that regard. But I just mean with regard to the distractions, the general distractions that are going on. This is deliberate. This is to keep you busy. This is to keep you less and less concerned with what is the ongoing watering down and removal of our constitutional rights and liberties through what I will also state, the manufactured emergencies that are designed to whittle away at our constitutional protections under the guise of things such as, well, it's a national emergency, it's a statewide emergency, and so you don't get to decide that you're not going to get a vaccine. You have to. You're being forced to. You don't have a constitutional right to choose anymore about what's going to be injected into your body. And it's because the entity is able to establish on a quote unquote constitutional basis of some superseding concern regarding the safety of the public, that because you are more of a danger if you don't get the vaccine than if you if you do get the vaccine, based on those that are dying, those that are claiming deadly sicknesses, those that are not able to recover, those that are catching it based on the level of how contagious it becomes. I just want to open your mind. In the state of California, the system of federal group stalking and monitoring is the practice of witchcraft, and a witchcraft can manifest itself in what are things such as the entity admitted it was akin to a cold. Okay. And with regard to being akin to a cold dropping dead, you need to understand that those that are given over to Satan, I mean literally the demon possessed, and also those that are in darkness, those that don't know Christ, those who are not covered and filled and sealed with the Holy Spirit, in order that witchcraft has no power over you. Yes, I am stating that it is a work of Satan by this same corrupt government in order to manufacture emergencies, in order to systematically whittle away one emergency after another emergency after another emergency, in order to accomplish what is ultimately the ongoing systematic removal, if not a great decrease, of the constitutional protections that we are ordained. Well, that's if you're informed about it. But if you're paying attention and you're mindful of these things, you're watching them, then you're able to, even as you entertain, both sides of the argument, what is nonetheless a change in constitutional protections, regardless of whether the state is seeking to substantiate it, support it, one way or another. I'm going to let you know it's the same demon-possessed people of the state who engage in claiming one thing has happened when an entirely other thing has occurred that you know nothing about. And it does manifest itself in systematic means of lessening your constitutional protections, which is the purpose of this entity that is already keeping you under surveillance. This is not to spread fear. It's to spread information. And again, I just want to state, if you do not already know the Lord Jesus, if you have not accepted him as your Lord and Savior, it very well is made in the state of California. It doesn't exist. Okay. These pastors, they're demons. They are now. I was in a fake church for years, Sunrise Church in Rialto, California, and the Lord, amongst those, and why is that? Because he knows your heart. And so the posture, the wickedness of the sinful desire and hatred of another, even a demon, does not change or confuse God regarding your purity of heart. And if you earnestly seek him with a pure heart and you ask him to enter your heart, to forgive you of your sins, and claim and confess that you believe that the Father God sent his son to die on the cross. He walked this earth, he died on the cross, and he rose again 3 days later. The Bible is very clear. He knows your heart and he will enter in your heart. You will be saved. And these are the times that we're in, because you're not able to just walk into a church anymore that's filled with a bunch of demons who are congregating to make themselves feel better about the wickedness that they practice Monday through Saturday night. And this is just the truth. Okay, this is just the truth. This is not about religion. People think because you claim the name of Christ and because you believe that the word of God is true, that you're religious, and that's not what religion is. People who are religious go to church every day and they assert the name of Christ when they know nothing about him. They don't know him. They don't know him as their Lord and Savior. They practice wickedness, which the scripture clearly says, you say that you know me, but you practice evil. And in other words, I'm paraphrasing, you are clearly in sin. You are a liar and the truth is not in you. That's religion, by the way. That's religion. Outward works having nothing to do with a genuine transformation, which when Christ comes in, he changes your heart. And that even means if you're struggling with sin, say you're in sin and you aren't, because he knows your heart. You can't trick him. You can't bamboozle Christ. And praise God for that. And you don't have to walk into a building to receive him. I've been surrounded by demons in a fake church. While they say with their mouths, Christ Jesus, they're hailing Satan in their hearts. I've been there. I've already done that. And in the midst of those demons, renewing my devotion to Christ Jesus, because he knows my heart. And I was saved amongst those demons, saved amongst them. And I'm thankful for it because I'm supposed to be dead, actually. I'm not supposed to be alive, according to the agenda of the wicked, whose secrets I will continue to speak on as long as he tells me to speak on it. And by he, I mean my Lord and Savior, Christ Jesus. That's who I'm referencing. Right. So I just want to be clear that this is the reality of what's going on. And it is relevant to a corrupt government that is already keeping you under surveillance. And there is an ongoing intentional purpose, even through the population, to make, dumbing you down, making you ignorant, focused on this and that and everything else. But yeah, you should be paying attention, but not obsessively, because those who walk with Christ, and I'm paraphrasing again, walking circumspectly, for recognizing the times that we're in, you don't have anything to fear. You know how this ends with regard to his church, regarding what Scripture has said. So we don't walk in fear. We don't fear man. All right, and my life is literally a living testimony of that. Police officers that are, they fantasize about shooting me dead in the middle of the street, but they have to find circumstances where they can do it. And it doesn't look like cold blood murder. It looks like maybe I was attacking somebody, or I was attacking a third party, or I was, doing something unlawful, where they can control the narrative. But that's what those demons intend to do. That's why they're stalking me in helicopters day and night. And I have proven that as I go from city to city and county to county, in what is a remarkable environment that is irreconcilable with what even NASA, with what science says the natural environment looks like and behaves like. That's not a coincidence. Yes, there is a real-time agenda to alter your constitutional rights as they operate, and you will look up and we won't have any anymore, right? So this is not spreading fear. Fear is not of God at all. But it is not harmful that you be informed. And I am convinced, I believe, and I know that the Lord God permitted Satan to come against me in the tremendous way that he did through the state of California, so that I might live to testify to his goodness. That's exactly why. That's exactly why. You don't have, like myself, somebody that is a trained legal professional, and the entity took everything from me. And all I needed, first of all, was my Lord and Savior, but also I have all the tools in my mind in order to enforce my rights and prosecute my way out of it. That is the work of Christ Jesus. Only he can do that. Speaking to the ability to prove that which no human being could possibly, I can't make this stuff up. I can't make that up. It's so demented. It's so sick and weird and creepy. And that's by design, to make someone look crazy. That's Satan's plan. And Satan is also specifically using and intentionally using the government in order to execute it. Only God himself can provide victory, triumphant, unmistakable victory to his child. And it is supernatural. It is. And as I stated from the beginning, what has happened to me, I have continuously, you need to take me out of what it is that you're looking at, because I represent the exception. I am always advocating on behalf of the one who is already gone, who can't speak for themselves, who don't know what's going on around them. They don't understand why. And they're tormented in their mindset. They're engaged in suicidal ideation. They're feeling targeted by everyone in their lives, personally and professionally. Wondering, I know what that's like, thinking you've done something wrong at the job. Why no one likes you? Why did they fire you? Why are they targeting you? What did you do? Me. You're looking at yourself. If you're a normal person, because you're not automatically going to think it's everybody else. That's not a healthy mindset. But with regard to federal group stalking and monitoring, it literally is everyone else. And also that disparity, all right, that unfair, that bully design is also malicious, because everybody is aware. You're aware of that. Typically, when you go around and you have problems with everyone has heard of that. It's usually not everyone else. It's usually you. That's actually not the case with regard to federal group stalking and monitoring. It is indeed targeting. And it's demonic. And every single last person in the state of California is of this condition and is engaged in this demonic system. All right, it is currently, by the way, it's 10:06 p.m. This was to elaborate regarding monitoring methods that are underway on the internet. You're already under surveillance, and those are some of the examples whereby you are examples of monitoring, which is not based on the fact that it's just happened to me. No, you're under surveillance as well, which is also why this happened to me, so that you can know that. And I just live to tell of it. Right? It is again 10:06 p.m. on Friday, January 10th, 2025. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, this is documentation that is captured on video moments after documenting the podcast discussion. And as I am reviewing that prior to uploading it, the demons that are exceedingly hostile, these are, again, these are psychopaths. And this is the reality of witchcraft, the demon possessed, who are engaging in the ongoing, the entity is still acting in furtherance of a conspiracy to murder and kidnap while they are using the resources of a corrupt municipality, which Paul Leon is fully aware of and he's also accountable for. And this is, again, the removal based on domestic terrorism that he is a part of and that he is enabling and facilitating and engages in what is real-time threats to the life of a target individual who is exposing it and documenting it and publishing it in real time while the entity is aware of all those who I name. The demon that is in apartment number 55 with license 5WUV715, she engages in pacing in a circle, which is amplified in noise while the demons fly directly over. You will see their location over the apartment building. You will see the fake moon directly over the top of my head. And of course, this is the address, the location, the precise building on the property grounds of Woodside Senior Apartments, where the fake sun remains directly over the apartment building from the beginning until the end of the day, and where you see all manner of engineered light, which you will also see in the video if you go to my YouTube channel, the P.O.C, or you go to the website, this is the POC.wordpress.com, excuse me. If you go to the POC website, that's what I want to say. And then the POC YouTube channel. Okay. Again, my website is the POC.wordpress.com. So the Ontario Police, this is a federal offense, criminal obstruction of justice. The federal government is going to prosecute the state. And you're talking about not only removal from office, but this is the removal for a corrupt gang stalking agency. They're not a police department, and they've totally given up any effort to appear legitimate. These are acts of desperation by they're just sore. And so they engage in very foolish as far as evidence and as far as being on the news, embarrassing law enforcement as a industry altogether, as the executive branch, being removed from law enforcement, which is exactly what every single last one of them are. And I mean every single last one. They don't have to be documented by license plate. I don't have to have had their badge number. The entire police department, which is Ontario Police, every single last one are permanently done with ever having anything to do with law enforcement in any territorial jurisdiction in the U.S. And this is the result of engaging in what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture, which this video evidence shows with outright impunity and high malice in furtherance, which is, again, what is exactly communicated, an unlawful threat, terrorizing an American citizen in furtherance of the intent of police to engage in malicious murder and kidnapping, and doing so because they are hostile to what it is that you are exposing about them while they have targeted you, and they foolishly did so in evidence, and they did that again in the specific environment. It is very specific. It is very targeted. The demons, including Tracy Banks, who you heard entering into her apartment, which is a facilitating venue, doing so with the people of the state, is doing the same thing while the police are gang stalking where she lives. That's very clear and concise direct evidence. She's going to a mental asylum based on the mental instability exhibited by her engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring and all the ways and tactics she has employed in order to also profit from it and seek to conceal it, get away with it, engage in ongoing collateral harms that includes trafficking, sexual violence, etc. This is all relevant to what the entire state, including this demon. The demons at Woodside Senior Apartments, the state of California, are all being prosecuted for sex trafficking as an entity. They're all being prosecuted for sexual assault and battery as an entity. They're all being prosecuted, engaged in domestic terrorism and psychological torture, and collateral harms that they will be prosecuted for include theft of personal property, ongoing ceaseless engagement in criminal acts of obstruction of justice, engaging in what is assault and battery as an entity, and they do so with impunity while engaged in federal stalking under Title 18. And this is, again, nothing other than a law enforcement agency stating to the world and to the federal government that they do not care about actually abiding by the law, about threatening American citizens, about ceasing to engage in conduct. And they've got years of the same exact communication as they are acting in conformity to a pattern of conduct by the Los Angeles Police Department, by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, the Pasadena Police Department, the Monrovia Police Department, the Pomona Police Department. I have documented, if you want to go across state lines, more than that, but I've documented the Riverside Police Department, just to be clear, the Costa Mesa Police Department, the Orange County Sheriff's Department, the Fontana Police Department. I have literally documented tons and tons, including the fake Sun, over many of their police department, their police stations, which is, again, not the natural environment, including the demons who are going to be disbanded, the demon that's flying over in helicopter. They're going to produce the information regarding who's at the heliport, who was flying in the sky space, which is a matter of irrefutable evidence that I am publishing, and they're going to prison or an asylum. That is to be determined based on, again, mental instability is on its face, where the entity is stalking an American citizen, seeking to maliciously do so in the face of evidence that's showing you're not getting away with it anymore. And you continuously do so in clear disregard for your own interests. This is the mindset of one that will kill themselves while they're placing a bomb on themselves, and so focused on harming the target individual that they don't even care that they're losing their own life. That's the same type of mindset while a police department engages in federal group stalking and monitoring using helicopters, where there's a wealth of evidence showing a very specific pattern of conduct that is telling all of their secrets, thoroughly exposed and detailed evidence against this one particular agency, which is incriminating against the entire state, by the way. And while they do so, again, as they are merely just, these are demons. This is speaking to mental illness also. These are demons that are just mad because of what it is that I state, and they don't like it. But this is while you're stalking. This is while you're spying. This is while you're engaging in sexual violence. You're obsessed with my genitalia, and you are hostile because I tell the fact that you are indeed obsessed with my genitalia. This is the same entity that has sought to conspire to profit from my ultimate demise, and that is all of evidence that's irrefutable. So this is what the entity is engaging in, and so I will include this video that, again, I captured it moments ago at what is 10:25 p.m. And as the demons are flying over in helicopter, it's amplified in volume. You can see the engineer light. My shadow is upright on, and then at the front door, or adjacent to the front door, I've got two upright shadows. You can see my shadow flat on the ground. This is not a natural environment. This is the specific environment. You can see also indicated by the ornaments in the sky, that which is the fake moon is, again, that pattern of it being over my head. The sun is always over my head, no matter how long, no matter where I'm at, no matter how long I stay there. It does not move. It stays directly over me. And at nightfall, you see the same specific environment. Not coincidentally, as I capture substantial audio documentation referencing demons like Mike Lorenz, who are permanently done with law enforcement, who are indeed a threat to any minor children that he may have custody over. Okay, him, and if he has a spouse, they are threats. They are threats to themselves, and they're a threat to the public. What's the difference between the unemployed demon pacing around in the living room above me in engineer light in concert with the demons that are flying over in helicopter? Well, she is going to a mental asylum with license 5WUV715. The only difference is that this demon doesn't have a badge to be employed and is bearing a weapon and being given the ability to exercise fictitious authority under the law as a corrupt police officer that's engaged in the system of surveillance and not law enforcement. That's the only difference. Okay, so that mental illness is flying a helicopter and is working for a corrupt police department that works and is under the corrupt leadership of a demon-possessed, gang-stalking mayor. That's also a fake pastor. He serves Satan. He's a domestic terrorist leader, and he's also a demon-possessed fake pastor amongst a bunch of demon-possessed gang stalkers who congregate at the so-called Hope Church off of BOWMAN in Ontario, where I documented the pattern of conduct as well. The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, exhibiting mental illness. So that's severe mental illness of a psychopathic level, and the malice is also revealing that, and that is relevant to all the ways in which the department, the city of Ontario, is going to be systematically deconstructed based on you're talking about Paul Leon has been there for 20 years, so you have embedded corruption, and all of that has to be uprooted, okay? The entity is doing so, exhibiting severe mental illness, while this unemployed demon is sitting, for example, and she's just an example of the rest of them that are gang stalking on an ongoing basis, including Tracy Banks, who's sitting in her bedroom on her communication device while the entity is threatening my life and my well-being, safety, and liberty, and doing so while the entity is engaged in the very serious federal offense of federal group stalking and monitoring via helicopter, which is the highest threat that the entity poses, a direct threat to your life, and doing so as though we are in some third world country, and I am in Southern California. I just want to be clear, the world understands LA, California, Southern California in particular, to be the quintessence of where you want to be, the coolest place to be. They're filled with demons. And this is the psychopathic behavioral pattern and criminal conduct and corruption that fills the state of California. And there's nothing glamorous about it. It is a land of darkness, and they will suffer very severe consequences for what they continuously do in defiance. But I want to be clear, there's no negotiation with any terrorists, and there's no negotiation with Satan. They don't get a vote in what's going to happen to them. And the ways in which they are going to be exposed and prosecuted is based on what they have continuously decided to do. And there is a federal response for it. It is currently, I want to be clear, while the entity is amplifying 10:40 p.m. Again, this is the sex offender that monitors my genitalia 24 hours on behalf of the Ontario Police, on behalf of the City of Ontario, in concert with the people of the state. Everybody in units 33 through 64, every single last one, are going to federal prison. And the demon in this apartment, she lives here. You heard her monitoring with impunity, just having a field day, just gang stalking galore. That's exposing what is mental illness by very malicious and those that have no remorse whatsoever while they are engaged in clear cut and fully exposed. They don't look innocent. You're looking at demons. So that's why they have that nonchalant engagement and continuing in that which is not a secret. No one's looking perplexed. No one's thinking that you're looking at normal. Everyone is able to see through the illusions that the entity sought to create. Now that they are doing so, you are witnessing the exposure of concealed mental illness of an entire population. And in apartments 55 and 51, they're both going to mental asylums. And that is not exclusive, because those gang stalking in helicopters and airplanes are subject to that same manner of punishment. It's currently 10:42 a.m. And again, the video that you will see, the entity flying directly over in helicopter while the demon above in unit number 55 documented substantially engaging in psychological torture on behalf of the same corrupt police department, the same city of Ontario, for the duration of the day. In unit number 55, this video is at 10:25 p.m. again. Where she is pacing in circles above. That's audible activity and relevant positioning. This is a psychopath. Imagine a dog that's chasing its tail. This demon-possessed female is pacing around back and forth, which is what Satan using a person is doing. And as a population, you're looking at what is ongoing, incessant patrolling. They're all pacing as it going in all manner of directions, and they're all in what is engineer light. They're all under what is a cartoon environment, under a fake sun, and it's very severely demented conduct. As that system is exposed, and as they exhibit mental illness by being hostile because one is enforcing their rights, AVANATH Capital Management they're not going to survive prosecution, and they are subject to, first of all, their pockets are going to be drained because they're profiting. The government is using their property. The government is using the sky space above the property. The government is literally compensating the demon possessed who can't even afford to pay their rent, while they are, in other words, a means of criminal surveillance and furtherance of a conspiracy to murder and kidnap someone. And AVANATH Capital Management's employees and residents are all engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, which AVANATH Capital Management is liable for. They are also, by the way, as an aside, they're gang stalking in Irvine, California, which I've already documented. It is not specifically AVANATH, but I documented Orange County, which is indeed a group stalker. So there is no area in California, as I've already shown, the evidence shows, that's not engaged in group stalking. They happen to be headquartered in Irvine, and they are indeed a group stalker. They're not ignorant about what their property is used for, and they're going to be civilly and criminally liable for it as I prosecute the state. And the state is acting through their gang stalking residents. So you're talking about removal from receiving federal housing benefits. You're talking about a criminal record. You're talking about deportation. You're talking about impunity that's shared by a population, not just the demons at Woodside Senior Apartments, not just the demons in the immediate neighborhood around the Woodside Senior Apartments. The entity is engaged in a citywide criminal effort. And as I go outside of Ontario, so does that fake sun remain over me, as also the evidence demonstrates. The entire state is being documented exhibiting unlawful and profound impunity with regard to domestic terrorism that is underway in the United States. It is a systematic means of murdering and kidnapping American citizens. And as the demon-possessed, the domestic terrorists that practice psychological torture as a way of being in a corrupt society in California, they care not about that. Okay, that's going to be removed from law enforcement. That's going to be removed from office. That's going to be removed from the public, placed in cells and facilities where they belong. So that they cannot torture, harm others. All right. It is currently 10:45 p.m. The video is going to follow. Again, it was captured at 10:25 p.m. now. Sorry. It was captured at, 10:25 p.m. This is P.O.C. Oh, I want to document 10:45 p.m. ongoing malice. The demon is pacing in circles. This is the state, the same police department, the same entity is monitoring through this demon that's pacing inside of the apartment, and the entity sounding helicopter activity. So this is what I document in the document WOSA-the people. That's all. That's psychological torture also. While the demons are monitoring, they engage in it. They engage in more of it as you document it. This is supposed to, this is a psychological torture tactic by what are absolute psychopaths. And she's literally just she's not exercising, she's stalking. And this is a demon that's out of their right mind. Okay, a demon-possessed person going back and forth and back and forth. It's a teeny tiny little apartment. She's not going anywhere, and neither are they in helicopter, and neither are they in the specific environment. All they're doing is pacing around. Understand the legal context where the specific environment is captured. It's perpetual presence and activity creation in the path, and it is unlawful. It is currently 10:46 p.m. This is P.O.C. This is the ND flying over by helicopter. This is the fake moon that is directly over me. This is what the entity is doing during the day while a fake sun remains directly over me. That's the to be disbanded domestic terrorist leader Mike Lorenz is going to be permanently removed from law enforcement. The Ontario Police Department is going to be disbanded. Paul Leon is going to be removed, and everyone under his corrupt leadership. That's the Ontario City Council. That's the city of Ontario that's gang stalking, flying over the apartment while I am reviewing the podcast that I just recorded. And this is an act of criminal retaliation that they're going to prison for. She's going to an asylum in apartment number 55. This is my upright shadow. Okay, this is impossible light activity, and the entity is doing so while they are hostile, engaging in what is domestic terrorism and furtherance of a conspiracy to murder and kidnap, still doing so, which is evidence that the federal government, the federal court, is going to use in assigning time in prison, and assigning mental asylum, and deporting American citizens. All the gang stalking immigrants in the state of California act with impunity, engage in acts of retaliation while they listen to me record the podcast, and then repeat the engaging in psychological torture and gang stalking in a helicopter in a very specific environment where the entity is keeping a fake sun all day long, and where your shadow is upright. Where light is coming down from a fixture, your shadow is going to appear on the ground. Okay, just like you see here. This is normal light activity for it to be upright. That's called engineered light, which all of this is. They are all engaging in a criminal act of retaliation. This is the city of Ontario acting vicariously through the people of the state. This is criminal surveillance, not any private residence. And they disregard the fact that they are going to federal prison, and that's relevant to how long they're going to sit there. The entity is acting with impunity after I have just recorded the podcast, which I'm going to publish. This is again 10:27 p.m. This is the permanent removal from law enforcement for every single demon currently employed by the Ontario Police Department. Derek Williams is the previous demon engaged in the corrupt leadership that Mike Lorenz, the current demon, that is gang stalking and is aware of exactly who I am, what it is that I'm stating while they are targeting in helicopter, aware of what it is that I just published on podcast. The entity, what that is the state of California, is being exposed and documented for purposes of prosecuting psychological torture and domestic terrorism that the people of the state engage in ceaselessly, outright disregard for the constitutional and human rights of another, and they do so with impunity. I want to be clear, Tracy Banks is inside of her bedroom. She's also gang stalking. What is her blood relative? You would refer to her as she's supposed to be some sort of mother. She is monitoring. She's acting in conformity to that same P.O.C. She is documented, engaged in criminal defamation, criminal summoning, kidnapping with the same Ontario Police Department. She's going to a mental asylum. All right, it is currently 10:28 p.m. This is P.O.C.